You're listening to the Gabe Molina podcast.
Maximo Anguiano.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the podcast, man.
All right, Mr. Gabe Molina, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, man, when you first reached out to me, we talked a litlittle bit. I started doing some research on you, and I came across a podcast you did recently with a gentleman who goes by El Nino.
Eladio Nino, his podcast, the Nino Podcast.
Yeah, and so he's up in Michigan, right?
Detroit, Michigan.
You know what? One thing that kind of really was, I thought, super cool about him is it sounds like at some point in his life, maybe in juvie, he had done a little bit of time,
He
right?
did a lot of time.
And now he kind of dedicates himself to helping people tell their story, helping the youth in the community. And it's interesting to me because I've met a handful of people that have kind of been, I don't know, in trouble, whether it's drugs or incarceration or whatever. And when I was younger, man, I was very simple, right? And when I was younger, I was like, man, it's hard to rehabilitate people like that. And for some people it is. But, you know, to see a guy go through what he's gone through, pay back his debt to society, whatever he had to do. And now he's come out on the other side and he's concerned about the youth in the community.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that's a big deal, man.
It is a big deal.
It takes a lot of strength. How did you meet that guy?
So it's interesting, and he'll tell you all this, so it's not like we're spilling all his business and spreading the cheese, man, but I got to say what's up to Eladio Nino up in Detroit, Michigan, because he recently had me on his podcast. I met him when I was volunteering at a prison in Michigan when I used to live there. I went in there and dedicated some time once a week to uplifting these men's spirits. It was a low-level security prison where men were on their way home.
Okay.
So as they were on their way home, it was providing them with resources. It was, talking to them about a different mindset of what it was like from the outside. Many of these individuals have been locked up for 10, 15 years, 20 years. And he happened to be one of them. And he was on his way home, met him. He came home. He's in Detroit now, and he's doing good things with youth, with other people that have recently come home, reintegrated into society, as they say, rehabilitated, all of the terminology that we know. And so now he's helping people out. His thing is talking to real everyday people.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. And what is the name of this podcast again?
The Nino Podcast.
The Nino Podcast. Awesome, man. Well, I think people should check it out. It's got a lot of good stories on there.
Yeah.
And I mean, just it resonates. And, for somebody, I don't travel much. You talked about traveling a lot. But for somebody who lives on a completely side of the country, we still have a lot of similar experiences, right? And so I really like what he's doing and just communicating that with other people. And, a lot of people don't know how other people live life, and for him to be able to put that out there and communicate that to people and produce it in his podcast and share it on social media, that takes a lot of work and that takes a lot of heart too, because, for a lot of guys, it's going through that. A lot of them don't want to talk about it because they don't want to relive it. But
you're right, dude. And there's a sense of vulnerability that we give when we're talking about our deepest secrets. And many people don't like to share that they've been incarcerated, or if they were, the wrongs they've done. A lot of people have made mistakes. Some people don't want to share them and talk about them, But listen, we talked a little bit about, before the cameras came on, about the benefits of having these podcasts. So if this is an avenue and a vehicle for men and young men to come on here and to find connections and bridge gaps and talk about, things like our mental health, or talk about, things like sports, or, our wives, or whatever it may be.
Don't get me started on that topic.
We could go. I think that might make for some good content, but I know guys in Detroit and guys in Philly, guys in LA, here in San Antonio, that there's a lot of good reasons why we need to continue having these podcasts. So I think you mentioned that, hey, this brother should keep going. Yeah. I appreciate you for having this platform, for having me on, for having a lot of the guests that you've had on as well, because it allows us to create some understanding with one another.
Sure.
Right? You recently, I saw on your podcast a couple of weeks ago, or whenever it may have been, you had an individual, a mother, come on, talk about that she lost her daughter.
April Chang, man, her son.
Her son, through a drowning incident.
Yeah.
And us as adults, we got to talk about grieving sometimes.
Sure.
Grieving is a heavy subject, but unfortunately, loss is a part of life.
Yeah.
And so however we can talk about some difficult subjects, however we can talk about loose subjects as well, and just have fun, let's do it. So I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. You talked a little bit earlier, you were mentioning that you MC a lot of events locally in San Antonio. How long have you been doing that?
Oh my gosh. So, it's funny because I've recently realized throughout all of my life, I had to listen to the things and the messages that people were telling me, but people told me all the time that I had a radio voice.
Oh, well, you do have a good voice.
Thank you.
I've got a terrible voice.
It's not bad. But and so people had always told me prior to that, hey, Maximo, you should go be in the novellas. You look like a novella Mexican that should go be in these telenovelas, the ones that our grandmas and tias watch. And so,
how old are you?
I'm 41.
Okay. Did you ever make it through Dos Mujeres Un Camino?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, that was the shit. Ponch was the man.
Exactly, right? And so people had been telling me all this time that I needed to do these things. And so I started, doing a little public speaking. I started watching public speakers and becoming fans of them and mixing it up on the mics. And so I just found ways of emceeing events somehow. People asked me, hey, do you want to MC this event? I did one event. That led to a second event. And then I got good at it. I wanted to be like, did you watch UFC?
I used to.
Okay, so ring announcers, they'd come out there and give these big, outstanding, big speeches to intro the fighters and intro the card. And I thought, well, hey, that's fun. I can do that too through these events. Yeah. And so just having fun, it's.
Did you do that on your own, or was your family kind of into entertainment? Your parents or anybody?
No, I think I kind of just did it on my own.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but it's been leading to bigger events and having fun. And so, we'll see what comes of it.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
And how long you been in San Antonio? Because you mentioned you've been in Michigan, right? For a while?
So I grew up, born and raised in Lansing, Michigan. I've been in San Antonio for about 11, 12 years, but my dad and his family were originally from here, and they went up to Michigan to go work in the fields. My mom's family is originally from South Texas, from Harlingen down in the valley.
Okay.
They went up to Michigan back in the heyday of the 60s
Is that where they met, in Michigan?
They did.
That's cool.
Yeah. So my dad's family went to work in the fields. My mom's family went to go work in the car factories.
Okay.
And a lot of people, a lot of Tejanos, a lot of people that from this part of the country went up there to live, and they had a good life up there working and doing their business up there, and so I kind of just see that I came back home.
What grows in Michigan?
Oh man, all sorts of stuff. Pickles, corn, blueberries, apples. The apple industry is real big up there. Okay. So pretty much you go to the H-E-B, you go to any grocery stores here, the apples are going to say Michigan, blueberries are big up there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's cool. Because I know that, it gets so cold up there through parts of the year. I was like, what's going to grow up there? That's cool. What's awesome is that they lived in such close proximity, and they ended up having to drive across country to find each other. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is, man. And you'll find a lot of people up there that have stories like that, and it's really diverse too with the colleges and stuff. So there's a lot of good things all over the country.
That's cool, man. What kind of when you were younger and you ended up coming to San Antonio, what age was that?
So I only moved back here about 12, 13 years ago, man. But we had come, on a vacation with my dad sometimes down here, and we'd go to places and stuff. I remember being a kid, we went to SeaWorld. Okay. And I thought it was cool. You see the orca whale up close.
How many times did you go to SeaWorld?
I don't even remember. Probably twice.
My dad took me once when 2 weeks after it opened. All they had were guys on motorcycles in Shamu.
What?
And we went. And I remember seeing that it grew. And I would ask, my dad was this guy. I'd go, Dad, I want to go back to SeaWorld. And he was like, no, we've already been.
Wow. Well, once is good enough, I guess.
We never win again. But one thing that I find interesting is when people come from another state like that, what was the big culture shock for you when you got to Texas? Because I'll be honest with you, this is I don't know, people are going to probably get irritated with this, but I've told my friends, I've got a lot of white friends. I got a lot of white nieces and nephews. And so I always tell them, when I meet people, I like to say anything north of Dallas is a Yankee. But I say, when you meet, like, maybe not the Mexicanos or black folks, but in particular white folks, when you meet white folks from the UP or Wisconsin, they're very different than the white folks in Harlingen or Brownsville because of the Mexican influence, right? So what was the biggest culture shock for you when you came and actually was living here? Man,
that's a good question. I think probably the biggest cultural shock was, I remember when I first moved down here and I was actually living here, I ran into a building. I think I had like an interview of some form. I ran into a building and I got in this elevator, and there was about 10 or 12 people in the elevator, and
they all told you
going
hi.
up. No, they didn't tell me hi, but they all looked like we could be related.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, damn, man, everybody looks like me. Everybody, nobody was looking to be friends or anything. Everyone was just trying to go to work or go to their meetings or whatever. But I was like, man, everybody looks like me. And I guess I wasn't used to that right away, So I grew up with and been around a lot of different people, white folks, black folks. And so, San Antonio is very homogenous in the sense that a lot of people are brown folks. Yeah. You know what I mean? A lot of people look like you and I, so that was a little bit of a shock.
Really?
Yeah.
It's funny because I grew up in a really small town, And this is, I guess, big town, little town kind of contradiction. But one thing that I always struggled with when I first left home was when you grew up in a small town, you said hello to everybody.
Yeah, I get that.
You waved to everybody. And now I work in a building here in San Antonio where like people don't even look at each other. They cross paths.
Yeah.
They don't. And I'm the guy that's constantly, hey, and I'm always getting shot down because nobody does it back, And after a while, I kind of get desensitized to it, and then I stop doing it after a while myself. But that's one thing that I wish people did more of, and is just kind of that quick little interaction, right?
Yeah.
Say hello, hold the door open for somebody, that little quick greeting. There's a couple of people I've run into, and it's funny because every time we see each other now, we say hello, and we're kind of building some sort of, I don't want to say friendliness, and it's kind of like, I feel like people are too comfortable with letting those little opportunities go by, whether they're stuck on their phone or they're thinking about something else. It's like, I feel like we would be a closer knit community if we would just greet each other.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think we should do better and try a little harder, or do a little bit more to try to be good people to each other. Yeah. A little act of kindness or a little show of respect goes a long way.
Sure. It's funny because as I've gotten older, and I don't know if it's my generation's parenting skills, because there's a lot of good parents out there.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because when I was little, and I don't know if it was the same for you, but respect was a huge thing.
Yeah,
so it was ma'am and sir all the time. Thank you. You held the door for people. And it's funny because I've come across folks that I know that have kids, and they're roughly my age as far as parents go. And they're not huge on that. And it's funny because I got a nephew who doesn't do it a whole lot. He's being raised with his mom. He's the youngest of my brother that passed away I was telling you about. And it's interesting because when I get him, we work on those things, right, sir? And I do the same thing, right? When I address him, I even say, sir, yes, sir. Hey, blah, 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 no, sir. And he does it back. And it's funny because when he's not with me, he kind of reverts back to that other thing, right? And I tried to tell him, I said, look, man, you need to be the type of person that people don't question your character. You're respectful, you're kind, you're genuine, and it makes it real difficult for somebody to go, hey, Maximo's an asshole. Because people who know Maximo are going to go, no, he's not.
Yeah. Well, they actually might.
Well,
for Maximo.
Well, this you might be like
kidding.
me. I tell everybody, if I'm not hacking on you, there's a problem. Right?
Yeah.
That's how me and my friends get along in my family. We're I guess aggressive attitude.
Yeah, it's just a thing.
But it's a love thing.
Yeah.
But with him,
But how old is this young man?
he is 11 now. He's
Yeah.
11 now.
Well, we were talking a little bit about the state of the young person these days and the generation. And there's some generational things happening with the phones and social media and screen time in general, you know what I mean? And so that's a big thing right now with kids.
And you mentioned that the state of Texas was getting rid of phones out of school.
I believe it is a new state law, and I don't know, don't quote me on this. Someone fact check me or look it up, that students are no longer allowed to have their phones in school. I don't know exactly what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can't be visible, they can't be in a backpack, they had to be powered down, or they can't even bring them. What would happen if someone found a phone that was powered off in someone's backpack? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's pros and cons to the phones, obviously.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I think the young people should potentially have them for an emergency, call their parent, hey, can I get a ride? Can I get picked up? But I don't know. I don't know if they're, most of the time, I know most schools don't allow the students to have the phone and be looking at the phone in school.
Okay, so currently that doesn't happen.
I don't believe, okay. You can make rules. That doesn't mean everyone's going to follow it. But you're not allowed to have a phone out in school as of right now. I don't believe.
You work with younger kids in the school district. What do you see as far as that goes? Do you see kids on their phone, walking through the hallways?
They'll try to be on the phone. They'll take their phone and go in the bathroom and, try to be on the phone and just send a picture to somebody or, I don't know.
It's not overwhelming.
I wouldn't say it is, but it depends on how each school is ran, right? Who's running the school? What's their take on it? Is it a strict thing? Is okay, do you confiscate the phone? Some schools just confiscate this phone and say the kid can pick it up at the end of the day, or they pick it up at the end of the week, or they got to call home and the parents got to come pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Every school runs things a little different like that, but kids are not running around all day on the phone. They're not doing that.
Well, I guess it also determines the age group, right? If you got back home we called it elementary and junior.
Yeah.
Call it something else here, but I guess if you're a high school and you're a senior, you might be on your damn phone.
You probably could. Yeah, there's probably ways you can conceal it.
Yeah. And you got children too. How do you handle that? Their screen time.
So so that's a good question. We monitor our household screen time, because most people know that if you're a parent and your kids have screens, they could easily look at them all day.
Yeah.
And it's because the way that the phones are set up, if you're on social media, it's just scrolling, 5-second video, scroll another 15-second video, and then you can just be sucked in and you fall into a portal. That can happen to adults as well. People go, get on the computer and just end up looking stuff. Next thing you know, it's 8 hours later.
Yeah.
It could happen. it could happen to anyone, So, at the end of the day, I just tell my kids, hey, give me all the electronics. Okay. And I put them into a bag, and then we take them, and then I give them back to them when I want them to. So that's basically the best way to do things, and that way it's in my possession. I know some parents that unplug the internet overnight or unplug the internet from certain things so they can't get on, or maybe you take the chargers or something like that. I don't know, but I absolutely think that screen time should be monitored for these young kids, because, they're getting sucked into these things, and there's unintended consequences that happen when you just look at these phones all day and all night. We talked about their attention span. We talked about their natural human instincts. You just mentioned about just personal skills that these young people could accrue by being personable to people.
Right.
If you're not speaking with people and interacting with people, you don't garner and accrue those things.
Yeah.
It goes to the wayside. So it's like, hey, we need to just have some basic stuff. And that's not to say that they're not getting good things from the phones and the screens either. The phones could teach you survival skills, or the phones could teach you how to, start a fire in the wilderness if you need to, or, how to shoot a gun per se, right? I mean, they could teach you those things.
Podcast.
How to edit a podcast is right too. You can learn a lot of how to jump a car's battery.
Sure.
There's a lot of ways to learn things.
Right.
So,
but I guess the as a parent, we talked earlier. I didn't have kids. We weren't able to have kids, but I guess when it comes to something like that, it's a lot of work, because
it is a lot of work.
The key is consistency.
To do a good job. Yeah.
And you want to be consistent with those kids. That way, it doesn't turn into a fight every day. If it's a fight every day, I'm finding with my friends and other people that have children, if there's a fight every day, it's because you're being inconsistent. When there's consistency, they understand what's going on, and they learn to abide by what we're doing now, because there's some structure there, right? We had mentioned earlier about how, parenting is very difficult.
Parenting is very difficult.
But it's got to be done, and it's got to be
if you want to do it right, it's got to be done. You got to spend time. You got to go the extra mile. If you feel tired, it doesn't matter, right? If you don't want to do it, it doesn't matter. You have to. I mean, the state of our children depends on it.
Yeah. What's funny is we'll get into a little bit of feather ruffling, but I like to think a lot, right?
Good.
Now, do I have the exact answer? Probably not.
Yeah.
But one thing that I always found interesting was I've been on this kick watching history videos and whatnot.
Good.
And one thing that kind of bothered me was I grew up in this really small town. So I always tell people, by the time it happens in George West, it's been happening everywhere else for a very long time, right? And so in George West, technology got there slow, internet got there slow. So while the larger cities are consuming all this information quickly and getting used and addicted to cell phones or other devices, it got to George West slow. So for us, I think we were lucky that it got to us slow, but it's very important that parents learn that they need to continue to be more involved in their kids' lives. Oh my
gosh, yeah.
But one thing that bothers me is I feel, and people can tell me I'm full of shit because I might be, but it's like during World War II, all the men went to go fight, right? Women went into the factories and started working. And war's over, men come home, women go back to the house. And it's interesting because at some point there was this, I feel, because I wasn't alive, but I feel like there was this shift where it was kind of like, hey, women, we had been doing the job the men were, And I don't know who was involved, or I don't know if it was done politically or if it was done through some sort of activism. We talked about activism. But all of a sudden, they started to demonize the woman's role in the house, which is a fucking extremely important job.
Oh, my gosh. Somebody.
And so I tell everybody, I said, what ended up happening was we ended up convincing women that I'm not going to say housekeeping. What's the other word for that?
Homemaking?
Homemaking. Creating the house into a home and making sure the children are learning things that the family believes in and how they think and how they do things. We ended up taking women and putting them in the workforce, which the men were already there, shoved the women in the workforce. All of a sudden, we created government programs to start kids younger in school, which means the government is now teaching your kids what they want you to learn. And I said, all that ever fucking happened was you ended up getting, instead of getting one set of taxes out of a household, now you have two set of taxes that you're charging. The federal government's charging the household. So they're charging the man and the woman taxes, and they're getting their kid and they're teaching them what they want to teach them. I said, and now we're at this point where you can't fucking live without two household income, you know? Yeah. I mean, even that, it's difficult. You know, me and my wife do okay. And I told my wife, I said, you know, what's funny is when I was younger, now granted you acquire debt and houses and cars and things, but I was telling my wife, I said, you know what, when I started working as a kid, right out of high school, I was working at a jail. I said, I was making $1,000 a month. I make considerably more than that now. I said, but I got about the same amount of fucking money in the bank. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
There you go.
And it's tight for people because things get so much more expensive. All of a sudden, you're not spending that time with your kids. You know, when 50 years ago, you know, they were being raised by the mom, the dad came home, the kid was always around the family, around the family's choice of who was around them, whether it was friends or family or whatever. And then all of a sudden, I feel like Uncle Sam stepped in and said, hey, everybody go to work. And now we can double the amount of tax that we generate, and we teach your kids what we want to teach them early. But I don't know. That's my little soapbox.
But that's a conversation, and I don't think it should ruffle feathers per se. You know, I mean, I think perspectives and hearing people's opinions is a good thing. We talked about that too. You know, you have opinions, I have opinions. We're sitting down having a civil conversation, discussion. We're not arguing and yelling at each other. You know, we can talk about all these things. You know, I mean, the other thing is that, like, I hope it doesn't sound like we're indicting parents or we're blaming children for any of these things, because that's not the case. The case is that we all have to do our best to raise this generation. You know, you have young people in your life. I have young people in my life, you know, and everybody needs to be uplifted in a certain way, because this generation that is our youth right now, they will be the future.
Sure.
At some point, they're going to be in charge of, you know, management here and running this building here and this business, and they're going to be the attorneys and the doctors. And so we should, as a civilization and society, want what's best. Yeah. You know, education is an extremely important component to that equation. You know, so, you know, if you're an educator and you're listening to this, or if you're a parent, you're listening to this, I mean, I'm not pretending to have all the answers. I don't think you are. You mentioned you don't have all the answers. I think some answers are different for different people, depending on who you are and how you live your life.
Right.
You know, no one's here's mansplaining anything either, as I mentioned to you either. You know, we're two people that have opinions. You know, he has a podcast. I have a career. And so we're out here just chatting it up, you know. I think ultimately all of us want what's best for everyone. How we get there is going to be maybe a different road. How that happens for certain individuals, you know, there's a case that needs to be made regarding money. We live in a society, a capitalist society, where dollars dictate a lot of things.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? We talked about a friend of ours, or a friend of mine, you know, mutual friend that has a podcast, and he was talking about, man, I don't have as much money as I need to run this. Well, dollars dictate a lot of things, you know, and in this society, money means a lot of things. We talked about vouchers in schools. Hey, man, you know, it is a very competitive society out there. I wish certain things weren't the way they were, but unfortunately, many of our communities are left just to do the best they can, to struggle and to get by however they can. Yeah. If a parent and a family makes a decision to put their kid into a certain school, they've got reasons why they decided to make that choice. Sure. Who am I? Who are we to judge them? Yeah. Right? They want to put their kid in this school. They've got reasons.
Sure.
More power to them. Now, what can we do to uplift all of these families however we can? Maybe it's through education. Maybe it's through certain resources. Maybe it's certain books, right? You talked about certain education and curriculums and what they're being taught. Hey, let's read as much as we can. Let's get educated. Let's try to figure out whatever it is to get people certain messages to get them where they need to go. I think overall, the state of a lot of people in our communities, whether it's this George West, whether it's where I'm at in the Southeast, part of San Antonio. I used to live on the north side of San Antonio, up in the Stone Oak area, and all of our people are just looking to get by, man. And many of our people are struggling in some way.
Sure.
Many of our people are struggling in some way. A lot of young boys, a lot of young men are struggling with their mental health.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that has a trickle and ripple effect throughout everyone that we interact with, man. You know, one of the worst stories and things that I hear of is when you're looking on social media, or you got a cousin or somebody that texts you and say, hey man, unfortunately, man, we lost somebody, and it's because of something like suicide or something because of mental health struggles, man. I mean, that's one of the hardest conversations and things to kind of internalize and realize, man, there are people out there taking their own life because of struggles, man. And it's sad. It's really sad, man.
It's funny because I feel like, and again, we can kind of blame, or not blame, but we can kind of look at multiple things for being the reason, whether it's technology, whether it's, single parent households or whatever it is. But I feel like people younger and younger are feeling more and more ignored.
Yeah.
And I mean, to say, was I ignored as a kid? Maybe a little bit, but not nearly as much as I think people are ignored these days because, I'll speak in generalities, but I will also say there's never an always and there's never a never. So people need to understand that. When I say something, I'm not saying the entirety of the population is this way. But I feel like when we were kids, I'm sure there were shitty parents.
Yeah.
But the parents that I interacted with in our small community, they were very focused on their children, And nowadays, there's still a lot of people really focused on their children, but I feel like more than what there were before, their parents not focused on their children, focused on themselves.
Yeah, that could be.
And you see it I'm sure you see it more than I do because you're involved with kids way more than I am, but I've had conversations with people that have talked about parenting, and we talk about athletics and sports and things. And it's so funny because the best parents that I've talked to, that I think are good parents, have all said the same thing. They're like, dude, you'd be surprised how important it is to your kids if you just show up.
Yeah.
He says, we might go sit in the sun for 2 hours to watch a practice. He said, but every now and then your kid will look in the stands to see if you're there. He said, and there's so many kids that we see get dropped off and the car takes off.
Yeah.
And they come back in 2 or 3 hours to pick the kid up. And it's like just being present is the most simplest thing you can do, but it carries a lot of weight with those kids, man. And I feel like a lot of parents, whether it's because they're stressed or whatever they've got going on, or they're preoccupied with other things, they tend to forget being present.
Being present is important in all aspects of life. And, and again, I want to thank you for having me on this podcast, because one of the things that we're able to do is sit down and bridge gaps and talk about, perceived differences and whatnot. I say perceives because a lot of the things that we talk about in life in general, our perceptions or our visions or what we see from our vantage points, and I mentioned one of the things with where I'm at in my life right now, I try really hard that I've had to work on this, not to judge people, whoever they are. No matter if you've been in prison, if you worked at the prison, if you're a parent, if you're a shitty parent, right? Whatever it may be, because everyone has a destination that they're going to. Everyone has things that they're struggling with. Everyone is who they are. And we can commit to working on things. We can commit to getting better. That's one of the things I try to do with some of the things I talk about wherever I'm at. How can I inspire people to do more and be better? Because there are people, no matter who you are, that can do better. Sure. You could be an Olympic track runner and run a 10.8, one of the fastest 100-meter dashes, but you're looking to get that 10.7. You're looking to get that 10.75. You want to be a little bit better than the next. And so, there are parents that drop their kids off at practice and they can't stay because they got to go to work, or they got to work 2 or 3 jobs to be a single parent and manage their home, or else they're getting kicked out of their apartment, not even their home. You know what I mean? Because their rent is late, or because the lights might get shut off, or because they got to go pick up another child from another school, that's across town, or they got to go pick up their other kid from the other parent that they're co-parenting with. And so, there's a lot of things that go into this equation, man. And so we live in a very complicated society, man. And, we talked about social media. A lot of stuff you see on social media don't tell the whole story. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, it tells very little of the story.
We could put a clip. Yeah. We could put a clip on right now of this podcast of Gabe zinging me, like he said, right? Yeah. He said, you told me earlier, I'm not going to get you on this thing. And I said, don't worry. But that's what's happening, because guess what? That will garner clicks and views, and people will share that, and people will say, hey, Gabe got this guy. He zinged him on politics, or he put him in his place. People like that because people have a negativity bias. That's why when you turn on the news, you see negative stuff. Which is the unfortunate
thing, right? It's unfortunate because it would be so much better if somebody went, oh man, they have 2 different perspectives, but they had a decent conversation. Like, nobody's clicking on that.
It's too bad. It's too bad.
This is one thing that I like. That's an interesting perspective, because I hadn't put much thought into what those parents are doing once they leave. I see the issue of the parents gone and now the kid is looking for them and they're not there. I hadn't put much thought into what the parent
but
might
you're
be
right
doing.
though. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, but what are they going home to take a nap because they work 2 or 3 jobs? They just got off third shift or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Sure. And this is another thing where I have plenty of character flaws, and you'll hear about a bunch of them here in a minute. But like when I was younger, I was very strict in my thought process, right? I kind of came from this mentality of, if I can do X, Y, and Z, why aren't you doing X, Y, and Z, right? And as I got older and even got into the workforce and had to be forced to be around different people, I started to realize, okay, not everybody thinks the same. Not everybody processes and does things the same. So it's interesting because I've done some podcasts with people who are therapists and people that have endured things and have struggled. And it's interesting because like I want to be compassionate, right? And a little bit of me has started to be. A little bit of me goes, okay, I'm seeing your perspective. I don't share that perspective, but I'm seeing it and I'm being patient with you. And I want to hear you. I want to understand you. But then I get to a certain point where time goes by and we're still having the same issues. And it's like, I get it. Every now and then something happens. You're strong. You're doing well. Something happens. Now you're low. You're depressed. You're having a difficult time. Like I mentioned to you, there were 3 days where I'd go home and stare at the wall till I fell asleep. Everybody goes through that. But at a certain point, and it's not my job to go, okay, now is the time to do this. But for me, I feel like people get stuck in that woe is me. At a certain point, you got to get the fuck up and get going.
Well, yeah. Listen, you speaking on it, and again, it's a complicated life,
sure.
Right? There is a time. I like to tell kids and anybody, there's a time and a place for all of the things. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we can be compassionate, we can be empathetic, we can be gentle and tender and kind to one another. But there's another time where you got to strap it on, and you got to pull up your boots and you got to get to work. And that's life, man. I mean, unfortunately, we live in a very complicated society where work. And when I say work, I'm talking about going to work, in a capitalistic society. This country is built on companies and businesses and entrepreneurism and things of that nature. And again, we can talk about all the historical wrongs, but in today's society, people got to make money.
Sure.
And that's just how it works. I mean, nobody's going to get anywhere without money in today's society. People have to clothe themselves. They have to bathe themselves. They have to shelter themselves and others, and money doesn't grow on trees, contrary to what anybody may believe. And people are not just getting handouts to do all of the things in life. Money has to be generated in order for people to do things. And yeah, we do live in a society where I think the ruggedness of going to work and hard work and discipline and determination and perseverance is kind of fleeting, but that doesn't mean we can't change that. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean we can't speak to that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it doesn't matter what side of the political aisle that you may lean on. It doesn't matter your political preferences. It doesn't matter if you vote or if you don't vote. It kind of matters, but we could talk about that too.
Sure.
What matters is that we have to figure out how society may function, right? And so again, the other day I went to Bill Miller's. I don't really like Bill Miller's, but my kids do, right? And they were very efficient.
That's very interesting that your kids like Bill Miller's.
They like Bill Miller's, right? They like the chicken and the bean and cheese tacos and the fries and the giant lemonades that they serve there. And so I got them some Bill Miller's and we went into the line. The line was very efficient. Mm-hmm. The line, when you go to the just to pull up to the drive-through, it was, we ordered. They didn't ask us a million questions. 2 seconds later, we get the food and we go off. And I'm thinking, okay, this is efficient. You look inside the window at Bill Miller's, they got about 7 or 8 people just working right there in front of the thing. I mean, they're cooking this stuff up. They're getting in the bags. They're taking your money and you're gone. To me, that's efficiency. To me, that's people power. To me, that says something about how this business is running their operations and their stores. So, I mean, again, I'm not here to stump for Bill Miller's. I don't even know anything really about Bill Miller's. What I'm telling you is that those people showed up to work that day and they were going to say, hey, we're going to do our job. We don't know what we're going to do today, what we're going to be faced with. Maybe people are going to be short on their patience. Maybe people are going to be in a bad mood. Maybe we can get people their tacos and they can feel a little bit better on today. That's how we're going to have to work together as a society. Just one little example of just working efficiently made us have a good day.
You know what's funny is it's fucking Bill Miller's.
It's Bill Miller's.
H-E-B.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A. And what is the tire place?
Whataburger.
Whataburger. Well, Whataburger kind of fell off during COVID, but Discount Tire.
That's
Tire. That's another place, man. And it's like, it's funny because like I always get upset. Again, going back to, I can do it, why can't you, right? When I go to work, even if I have a shitty day, I don't convey that to my coworkers. I don't convey that to the clients that I talk to on the phone. I don't do any of that stuff. That's for me. I worry about that later, right? But it's interesting because it sucks when you go someplace, Bill Miller's, and you have a great experience, and not only are they efficient, they also are very kind, right? And you sit there and go, it's shocking nowadays because that's a rarity in public spaces like that. And it's like you go to a lot of places and people don't want to be doing their job.
You're absolutely right.
And it's like we can't be, you can't behave that way. And it's like, how do you change that mentality in folks? I was talking a conversation with some guys last night. And it was interesting because they were talking about their children and how the way society is starting to become, their children that are very young are deviating from it. And it's almost like this peaks and valleys, right? It's almost like society goes through these peaks and valleys. And I feel like the youth constantly want to do the opposite of what they see the adults doing, and whether it's, my dad who was a workaholic, I was a lazy son of a bitch, man. But then sometimes when a child and it's not always, like we said, never and always, but a lot of times I think when a child sees a lazy parent, they go, I don't want to be like that.
Hey, maybe.
And so hopefully we start switching the other way, because I feel like even during COVID, things just got really bad.
Okay, so COVID was a rarity too. That was an outlier about what that did to society. But yeah, there's still a lot of these kids that had that COVID experience that are realizing, okay, they don't know what happened, but we know what happened as adults. I mean, to social distance and to close everything down and to not leave your home. I mean, that did something to us.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I'm not socializing with people, and people were really upset. Do you remember how angry people were when it was like, nothing's going to be open and stay in your home and social? People were like, no.
Yeah.
And that to me said a lot about what we need as humans. We need each other as humans.
Oh, absolutely.
Interactionally, I mean, business-wise, I mean, in all ways, we need to be around other people. As angry and as grumpy as we can all be, as little patience as we have with certain people at times, we need to be around other people. Yeah. It really is the truth, man.
I'll be honest with you, man. I'm a homebody, and I don't like being around folks, but I will tell you this. There was a time last year where I was having some serious, crazy shoulder pain. And I spent about 2 weeks where I didn't go in the office. And I like that stuff. And I've told people before, I think I was telling April the other day, we're talking about April Chang, I have to be very careful, because if I allow myself to be home and not go anywhere or interact with people, I'll be okay with it for a long time. And if I let it go too long, I'll get to the point where I don't need to interact with people after a while. Now, I may be in a darker place at that point, but because you need to have that interaction, but I get really comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But those 2 weeks, man, I tell you, after those 2 weeks, I went in the office and I was so happy to be in the office.
Exactly.
I was so happy to be around people. And I think one thing people need to understand is we need to have that interaction with each other. We can contribute to that, to whether it's a positive or negative, but also we just need to have those decent interactions, and you got to be productive. Yeah. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're a workaholic or an artist or a musician. People feel good. Maybe it's endorphins or something, but people feel good when they can be productive and feel like I contributed to something.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people that aren't being productive or contributing to something, whether it's a team or a company or maybe a passion of theirs, I see those people and they look very lonely and lost, and it's like, that's something that we need to keep in mind, that we need to push toward being productive and contributing.
So me being an outward person, me being a social person, I'm very much.
First of all, you're overly outward.
I'm very overly outward, and that's the thing.
It's not regular,
and that's just who I am, though. Yeah. And I'm comfortable with me being who I am now. You know what I mean? It's like, I think at a certain point in life, you kind of realize, hey, this is who I am. And this is who I am, this social person. Yeah. I've had to recognize what role I play in that equation.
Right.
I have a role in how your day is going today, whether I like it or not, right? This experience, you're going to feel a certain type of way when we're doing this and afterwards. When I went to Bill Miller's the other day, those people I can make them have a good day or a bad day. I've had to realize that that's leadership, right? When you start thinking like that, how do I raise my children, right? That's leadership. What role do I play in someone else's day or their week or their life. That is something that I have a role in. Yeah. To me, as a community member, I have a responsibility to make sure they have a good day, because I consider myself to be a leader in that sense, because I maybe have a little bit more patience, or I may see the world a little differently. I feel like I can help that person. I can help that person across the table right now have a better, I can help them see differently. I can give them a little bit more patience, a little bit more of a value to whatever it is that they can go and give to their kids or their people in their neighborhood. There's a lot of things that are going on in the world today that if we looked out for each other a little bit more, a little bit better, the world would be a better place.
Absolutely. You know, what's funny is I mentioned to you earlier, I used to work at a jail. And the thing I learned at the jail was my behavior can dictate a situation.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because living in the city, sitting in traffic, you know, I've some days I have a shitty day, man. And I may get pissed off if somebody cuts me off and I get on the horn and get right behind them and I'm being a dick, right? But I'm always mindful that I just fucking, at 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, that is going to contribute to how their day and your day goes for the rest of the fucking day.
Absolutely.
And if you would just slow down and let somebody in, imagine what that's going to do to them.
See, but that's awareness.
Right.
You gain that awareness. Not all people have that.
Yeah.
Because most people are like, me. Hey, I got to be to work. Right. I'm going to cut somebody off. I'm going to honk the horn. I'm going to give them the middle finger. Right. Road rage is a real thing. Right.
Sure.
And traffic is a real thing, too.
Yeah.
But let's think about that. One of the gripes I have around San Antonio, and I'll be very honest, it's a pleasure.
They can't drive when it rains?
That's another thing. But I mean, the construction, how long it takes to fix the roads around here. Let's talk about that. And see that. So again, if they fix the roads, we can navigate the streets a little easier. There's less traffic and less congestion. I just feel like if you're a leader, you got to do better at that sort of stuff.
Sure. Let me tell you what, Maximo. I live around 1604 and 35.
Oh my God! Don't go north,
dude.
Don't go north.
My first day at this job that I started a year ago
is not north.
Took me 2.5 hours,
bruh,
to get to work.
Dude, that was bad. At night they were shutting down the highway every night. Oh my God!
Not every night.
I'm glad I don't go up there.
Not every night.
Not anymore. I used to go up there a lot.
I told my wife, I said, we have a fucking curfew here. I said, if you're not home by 8:30,
8 or 9,
it's 9.
Yeah.
If you're not home by 8:30,
oh my gosh!
You're screwed,
and then if it rains, forget it.
Yes, I don't know if you saw it, but the last time we had a huge rain, they're at 35 and 3009. There's an HEB up there. They're doing so much construction, so they've got barriers and dirt everywhere. So all the places to drain have been covered and moved around. 35 was flooded up to people's windows.
Yeah,
and it's like, dude, you want to talk about contributing to the stress of a population.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things to be said about all that. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, I mean, again, what we're talking about are the role that something plays into dictating and helping people how they live out their days. I mean, listen, the work that I do deals with a lot of common everyday people. It's not people that are in suits or C-suites or that are going to be, have millions of dollars in vacation. The majority of the people that I'm trying to influence and help are just everyday people. Sure. It's our kids, it's our youth, it's our dads, it's our Theos, it's our brothers and sisters, it's our regular family members that are just trying to figure out how to navigate this world. I mean, we're living in a world that's constantly changing. Sure. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of things that are dictating, society right now. We talked a little bit about politics. We talked about how people navigate their cell phones and social media. Work dictates a lot of things too. I know a lot of people that are looking at maybe them not having a job next week because of technology and AI and things of that nature, So everybody's dealing with something, and it happens in all populations, whether you're in this group or that group. There's infighting and there's people that are disagreeing with other people. I really see my role being a people person, being someone who's social, being someone who's outward, is just helping people navigate the everyday things. How do we find common ground with people?
Yeah.
Just something as little as that, man. I mean, I socialize and work with enough people, that I speak with enough people that, look, common disagreements, we don't even got to have that. Straight up, it's like, oh, you said this, I said this. A lot of times our perception of things are lightly skewed. Oh, if you reread this sentence in this book, just read it twice and you'll be good. There will be no confusion here. You know what I'm saying? And so we live in a complicated society, but it doesn't have to be as complicated as it is.
I agree with you. And I'll be honest with you, as I've gotten older and maybe age contributes to it. It's very interesting because like when I was younger, I wanted to fight every fight. I loved fire, man. I love people who are ornery. I'm ornery, and I love to let's have an argument and let's go back and forth. I grew up with people with very sharp tongues, family members and friends. Like that's how we communicated with each other. It was always very sharp and very aggressive. And it was funny because like when I got out of that and I moved on my own, went to a larger city and was around people who were not that way, like it was weird because I craved that. Because that was the familiar part of it. But it's funny because now that I'm getting older, it's funny because you start seeing things through a different perspective. And it's kind of like I sit there and go, like a lot of people look back on, you kind of mentioned a little bit a second ago about things that have happened through history, negative things, and how it's influenced and impacted, today's life. And it does. But it's funny because I sit there here at 48 and I go, if we're lucky, most people will get 80 summers, man.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying?
Like that, yeah.
And it's like, do I want to fight every fight I run across? Or don't want to have a good, decent interaction with somebody and hold the door for a lady, or maybe sit in a doctor's office and talk to an older lady and just chit chat for 5 minutes and then go into my appointment. It's like if I'm lucky to get 80 fucking summers and I'm 48, I'm almost more than halfway there. If I'm lucky enough to get 80 summers, that really makes you start to rethink your priorities and look at your perspective. You see your perspective differently, because it's kind of like. It's like, okay, am I as passionate about the bullshit, or am I more concerned with taking my mom to lunch, or, reading a book to my children, or helping out, my local pee-wee football or baseball or little league or whatever it is. And it's like, what do I want to do with my fucking 80 summers? Do I want to be angry and argue with people on social media, or do I want to fucking, go to dinner with my wife and see an older couple sit next to us and buy their lunch? Like, I really think people, like you said, overcomplicate it. And it's like, it's literally less complicated than what we need to make.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time with my family over the summer, and I'd walk into the kitchen and hear a lot of those discussions that you're talking about, people just attacking people over how they like their tortillas. Yeah. And I'm just like, whoa, let's everybody take a couple of deep breaths here. We can fix this. Yeah. This doesn't got to be that way. And I'm like standing in front of two gangs trying to negotiate a truce here. Like, everyone calm down. We can fix this, but it's interesting, man, because people have their convictions and their ways. And I think once people realize that we got to do this together, we need each other, we can do this together, then things become less complicated, And so I don't have all the answers per se, but the more we get to know our people, the more we get to realize the solutions, right? You probably can figure out how to help your family not have those arguments just like I can, right? If we can just have them pump the brakes a little bit slower, And so it's interesting, but how we live our life, it says something. What we do matters. One of the questions I always ask people when I'm getting to know people or just getting reacquainted with people is, how do you spend most of your time? I'll ask them, how do you spend most of your time? How have you been spending most of your time lately? I don't want to know what you do, right? Maybe people say, hey, my name is Maximo. What do you do? I don't want to know about your job, man. Like, that's cool. You're a realtor. That's cool. If you work in an office, that's cool. That's great. Awesome. But I want to know how you spend most of your time. And if you spend a lot of time you're working, okay, how are you taking care of yourself as well? You spend a lot of time with your kids. Great. How old are your kids? Let's talk. Let's find those human connections. Sure. One of the things we talked about with this thing is radical. This thing is sweet. This thing can do things that many people have never imagined, but we lose the personal touch in working with people because this thing is overstimulation, man. Sure. This thing is over sensationalized, man. I want to know us as people, right? You talked about kicking it with your homies last night. That's great. We need more of that, of just getting around each other and kicking it and talking and catching up and having that personal connection. If we have that with people, we get back to humanity. Sure. We get back to how things were supposed to be. And I'm not saying that this is all bad. Please don't get that message misconstrued here. It's just to say, hey, look, the clicks and the views and the over sensationalization of what we're seeing on social media isn't the way that's intended to be.
Right. It's funny. My mom gave me a verbal slap to the face about 3 weeks ago before she moved in with me. I mentioned how she broke her hip and she's been kind of recovering, and now she's at the house for a little while. And it was funny because my dad required a lot of attention medically, right? But at the same time, my mom wasn't the personality in the family. My dad was, right? So everything was dad's house, dad's car, dad's this, and then I have other siblings that are stepchildren to my mom. I'm my only mom's child. So dad was the connective tissue amongst us all, right? And it's funny because when mom broke her hip, dad passed away about a year or two ago, going on 2 years now. When mom broke her hip, I said, we put her in a nursing home for a month because they had a rehab place there. And then after that, she's going to come to the house. And I'm 48. And she goes, man, I'm kind of excited to come to your house. I said, really? Why? She goes, because you're my son. And she goes, you left the house at 20 and I hardly ever saw you again. She goes, I don't even know you. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is like, I thought about that for several days before she came. And I was like, in the time that I was trying, I feel like we have different phases in life, right? Our first 20 years, we're young and going through high school and maybe going to college. And your next 20 years, you spend trying to start a family and have a career and be somebody, right? And then your third 20 years, you go, why did I acquire all this shit? And why have I spent all my time working? And I need to spend time with my loved ones, Yeah. And it's funny because that second 20 years, I thought about it and I was like, dude, I was so busy chasing a dollar that my mom feels like she doesn't fucking know me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's deep.
And it's like, when I sit there and I go, okay, well, what other relationships are that way?
Yeah, man.
I ended up talking to friends of mine, and I've talked about this on other podcasts. When my wife and I were trying to have children, we were unsuccessful. We had multiple miscarriages. And it was in that time, and I grew up really close with my friends, really, really close. During that time, we were struggling to have children, but also just the mental aspect of that, right? So we kind of detached from our friends. And it was very interesting because even before mom had that conversation, I started thinking, what has my relationship been with? I know what my relationship felt like with them, but what did they feel like? And I sat down with a few of them and I asked them things. And I learned that a lot of them felt like I had done something toward them. And I remember thinking, I believe you because you're telling me this and there's no reason for you to lie to me. But I never saw that interaction that way.
Yeah.
To me, I was seeing it from a perspective of a guy him and his wife just lost another baby.
Yeah.
Right? But maybe the way I conveyed that to them was differently and they absorbed that different. And all of a sudden they're like, Gabe's kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I didn't realize that, right? Till we had that conversation. But it goes back to fucking talking, man.
Yeah.
It goes back to have those human interactions and being able to say, hey, I'm going to fucking put my heart out here. Yeah. And if I'm an asshole, you're going to call me an asshole, but we're going to put it on the table.
Well, also, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I want to go back and to just acknowledge, that struggle that you talked about of you and your wife, trying to have a baby, as you mentioned. And so I wanted to, just take a moment. I'm sorry about that,
Thanks,
and respect to you all, even talking about that. I don't know. You probably have had a podcast about that.
It comes up every now and then. I don't know if
anybody wants to talk about, because I'm sure there's people in the profession or people that are in that field that could, it empowers other people when they hear that story, I think, to say, hey, I'm okay. I'm at peace with that. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know much about that life, man.
Dude, let me tell you something. And I talked about this a little bit with April Chang, that podcast. We kind of talk about it a little bit, but what's funny is as we talk about men, right? From a man's point of view, it's for us, we try to keep life simple. And we go, hey, what can I pay for? What can I fix?
Yeah.
Well, how do I fix this? Dude, when you're going through that kind of shit, there ain't nothing you can do but go fucking sit in that corner. Go over there. It's the doctor and your wife.
Yeah.
And as a man, there is no, I felt so useless, man.
Yeah.
I know you can say, well, pray for her. Oh, I did pray. But you as a man, we want to fix.
Man.
And when you don't have anything that can contribute, you feel lost and you feel like a fucking loser, man. I told April about the you ain't shit moment for me was, we went back for the second sonogram after the third miscarriage. And it's funny because we went to the first sonogram and everything was great. You heard the heartbeat. Everything was cool. Second one, we're going in there and I've got my phone ready. I'm holding it up to the TV screen and I'm super excited. Everybody's laughing and they do the thing and there's no heartbeat.
Damn.
The baby's a different color. And I'm sitting there like a dickhead holding my phone to the screen.
Yeah.
And I go, what's going on? And I look and my wife's crying.
Yeah, you didn't know.
And the nurse is frantic.
No, you didn't know.
And it's like, I told April, I said, you want to talk about a you ain't shit moment. I'm a very cocky guy, Maximo.
Well,
I like to think I'm the shit, but there's days like that.
And listen, I mean, this is an important conversation to the construction of manhood, sure. Because you talked about like that you ain't shit moment and I'm a cocky man. And that's cool, man. That's good, right? We could talk about that, but it's like, what we think men are supposed to be is a very complicated and tricky sure. thing, right? And I mean, there's all sorts of men, right? If we really want to get down to it, and nobody's one or more than other, right? We had this image, that this American man or person in this country was like a John Wayne and this big tough guy, right? I mean, that's not all true, right? I mean, it's like, and that's a very complicated subject as well, right? But I mean, I think that, again, the podcast is a place for us to open up about those certain things, and so, I thank you for sharing that. I mean, I wanted to acknowledge that. I wanted to go back and acknowledge that because it's a very complicated subject, and I'm sure there's some pain and sadness that go along with that, but it's, I think a lot of people struggle with that as well, and so to acknowledge it and to bring it up in the podcast space is a good thing. And maybe, there could be more awareness or there could be more resources and more attention spread to that because it's, having a child is not easy.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And so I empathize with people that are in that boat. But yeah, man, I mean, we're bouncing around on a lot, I mean, I think that, there's many ways to get certain messages across. You talked about, how we communicate as people. I think, again, how we communicate is important too. So you, in your sense, you have developed a persona or a personality, at least from what I can see, are people that you're approachable. And if somebody says something to you, you're not going to get all upset or, how we meet and how we communicate with people is important. It's not only what we say, it's how we say it.
Sure.
It's how messages are perceived. And I like to think of communication as doing a dance with someone. And thus far, we don't know each other that well, but you seem to be a good dance partner. You're a good listener. You do all of the things right when communication, you make eye contact, you're listening to what I'm saying. Many people listen to what people are saying and they're not really hearing you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They're already thinking of what they want to talk about, next. And that's okay too sometimes, but how we communicate as people, as men is extremely important. And I'm glad we can model it today. And you've done really well with your podcast. How many podcasts have you had?
I think right now we're doing 106 or 107. I can't
That's a lot of podcasts, man. And so, there's been some criticism of men in podcast spaces that I've become aware of. And people are saying, oh, men are getting on these podcasts to mansplain the world to each other and, be each other's entertainment and come around and be toxic masculinity. I don't see it that way.
Sure.
I see it as us communicating and conversing, of modeling certain things, of bringing awareness to certain subjects, of people that may be different in some ways, finding common ground, right? How do we interact as humans who don't agree on every single thing in this world? How do we, say, hey, it's cool anyway. We're going to get along because we live in the same community. We live in the same ecosystem and we want to help people, right? We want to help people with wherever they may be going. And everybody's going somewhere. Everyone's going somewhere. And I don't know anybody that's getting to where they've gone alone.
Right.
Everybody needs everybody to some extent.
Yeah. It's funny because, staying on the guy topic, I grew up around sports all the time, right?
Yeah.
So my dad coached baseball in Little League for a long time. And Dad always used it to teach life. And it was interesting because I was always kind of thought as manhood as being the fucking outfield on a baseball team, and it's funny because I feel like a lot of men feel that way because when the ball gets hit, it's all right if the pitcher doesn't catch it because he's got the infield behind him. It's all right if the infield doesn't catch it because he's got to have the outfield behind him. But if you're the outfield, there's nobody behind you. I think that's how a lot of men feel, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you have your child, you have your wife, you have the husband, and it's like, okay, the child can take days off or maybe have a bad day or make mistakes, and then the wife can do the same. But as a man, I feel like a lot of men are like, I can't take a day off. I can't make a mistake because if I drop the ball, it affects the entire team, and I think a lot of times we kind of got to this weird place in the last, I don't know, I'm going to say 20 years, maybe longer than that, where I feel like manhood and manliness, and you always started hearing toxic masculinity and you started hearing about all this, and it was really starting to downgrade the role of a male, right? You always heard people say, well, the patriarchy this, the patriarchy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've often told women that I've talked to, and this sounds a little controversial, but if you can let your husband be the husband, if you can support him in that manner that allows him to be the man of the house, I think for most decent men who have a decent head on their shoulder, when a man feels strong and useful, I think it is our nature to start taking care of those people that we love. Yeah. When we feel good about ourselves, when we feel confident in ourselves, we don't go, man, I feel amazing, I'm going to go pick up a bunch of chicks. Some guys do. But I think when a guy feels confident and strong, he turns around and he goes, okay, now let me take care of my family. Because I think a man feels at his best when everybody he loves is taken care of. Yeah. And he can stand in the outfield and watch the entire team and go, okay, everybody's taken care of. Like, I think a man feels at his best when that's happening, but he can't do that when he's constantly being downgraded, when he hates his job, when he doesn't feel useful or loved or cared for or paid attention to. You know, all those things some really masculine men would go, that's weird. What do you need that for? Yeah. Well, we need it. Whether we admit it or not, we need it. But when we feel that, when we feel wanted, when we feel like we're contributing, when we feel like somebody needs me, that's when men step up. Yeah. You know, and I think a lot of women that kind of went through this phase where they were downgrading men, they don't understand how a man works. And that's how it works. When we feel at our best, it's because we're taking care of others. Yeah. You know, and if you can allow a man to feel at his best, it will come back to you. Yeah. I think a lot of women need to understand that. Now, there's a lot of shitty guys.
Well, and thank you for saying that. I mean, listen, everybody, I think when it gets down to it, I know a lot of men, and when you get down to it, you peel the onion layers back, you get down to brass tacks. I know a lot of men that are big teddy bears when it comes down to it, right? You know, you know,
even the hardest motherfuckers,
yeah. You know, you talked about the gym culture. Look, I've been to all the gyms. You know, I work out, I do all the things, man. I played all the sports, and I've got to know a lot of different people, you know, through athletics. You know, we mentioned police, fire, you know, Military City USA. There's a lot of manly men around here, right? You know, I think we need to get to a place in society where we're comfortable letting men be who they are. Yeah. You know, and men are all of the things just like everyone else is. Sure. There are men that are realizing at age 48, 49, 41 that, hey, you know what? I don't even like women anymore. I like men. Sure. Right? Yeah. When we get down to it, right? And, you know, there's men that are recognizing, hey, at this age, you know what? I don't want to be a man anymore. As controversial to that as may sound to people, right? I know other people that are realizing, you know, hey, I had life all screwed up. I was thinking society, or I was thinking the world would be this way. I had it all wrong. I was wrong for 40 years. Here I'm making a complete change. I know people that say, oh, I voted Republican every election since I was 21. Now they're 48. I'm voting Democrat now. Or there's people that recognize, hey, you know what? I'm 48. I'd never voted before in my life. I'm voting next election. Yeah. Right? There's, you know, we have to get to a place.
When you have men that start changing their sexuality late in life, let me tell you something. That didn't happen overnight.
It didn't. No, but that's what I'm saying. That people have repressed. People have repressed their emotions. We are not comfortable. We haven't created a society where people are comfortable enough to be themselves.
Now, this is where we kind of like. This is where I kind of, you know, I mentioned earlier where I go, okay, I understand you're in your feelings. Now it's time to get the fuck up and start moving, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, I actually know a few people that have had that experience where they were married to a male. Male decides late 40s, early 50s that they're gay, right?
So so this male was married to another male. Are you telling me?
No, with a woman.
Okay, so you had a man and a woman who are married, and then the guy realizes I'm not into women no more.
And he probably never was, right?
Yeah.
But this is the thing is like, this is where things get real shitty, because maybe some people are capable of doing it better than others, but the couple of interactions that I've seen where that happens, the male takes off and abandons everybody. Abandons the children, abandons the ex-wife. Yeah. And it's like, hang on, you didn't become homosexual overnight. You know, for whatever reason, 25 years ago, before you started having children, you knew you were homosexual. But yet you decided, for whatever reason, maybe you felt oppressed, maybe you felt ignored, maybe you were scared, intimidated, maybe you loved this woman. But you decided to bring children into the world. Yeah. You decided to let her commit herself to you. And now you're going to change gears and you abandoned everybody?
Yeah, that's upsetting.
That's terrible, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. People at some point, down the road, they feel more comfortable. And, maybe where society is now, I feel more comfortable to be who I want to be. But dude, you brought a family into this world.
But the thing there is that would be sad if the guy abandoned the family for any reason. Sure. Regardless if it was another woman or a man that he was leaving it for, right? I mean, so there we're talking about the family structure, I just think that we as a society need to get in a space where if our son or our daughter happens to be queer for whatever reason, I say queer as a blanket,
what is queer?
Statement. Queer to me is a blanket statement for anyone who may be LGBTQ. So instead of getting into all the little letters and the colors of the rainbow.
So queer covers all the ground?
Queer covers it all.
Okay.
That's the way. Now, don't let me mansplain that, okay? But that's just the way I see it.
Please
and that's
do.
the way I've been taught.
And this is where my wife goes crazy. Sometimes, I'll be honest with you, Monk. You won't say it, I will. Sometimes women need a mansplain because they overcomplicate things, right? And a lot of times things are a lot more simple than what we understand. But let me tell you this. I like to know what queer is, right? I think I know now. I know several gay people, right? And this is one thing that I think regular fucking gay Molinas in the world just had a difficult time with. I won't use names, but I know several gay people.
Sure. And
here recently in the last, let's say 10 years, 15 years, I don't know. All of a sudden there was this huge push that, and I'm not saying you're gay, but I'm going to use you an example.
Sure.
There's a huge push that, okay, Maximo's gay. Everything, and maybe it was social media, maybe it was the news, maybe it was just society, I don't know. But all of a sudden we got in this huge thing that you're your sexuality.
Yeah.
Right? And so I found a lot of people who here recently had mental breakdowns, who spent the last 5 to 10 years only talking about their sexuality. The other people that are gay that are my friends and family members, they don't subscribe to that.
Yeah.
Because they're more than their sexuality.
Yeah.
So they didn't go through the mental breakdowns.
Yeah.
Because they were more than who they sleep with.
Yeah.
The people that I noticed who everything on their social media was, hey, I'm gay, I'm queer, all the things.
Yeah.
They put so much stock into that. And you're so much more than that. You're a son, you're a father, you're a wife, you're a coworker, you're a friend.
Yeah.
But it's like the people that I saw that had mental breakdowns, not issues, but breakdowns later on. They were the ones that everything was identified in their sexuality.
Yeah.
And that was pushed real hard on people, right? It was like, hey, come out, be as loud as you can, And so a lot of people that I know go, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. They feel like they're getting that stuff pushed on them, right?
But it wasn't like, oh, it's gay.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. Fuck, everybody knows gay people. But it's like, I don't need that. If that's all you are, I don't want to fucking talk to you.
Yeah.
I want to know you as a human being and the things you like. Do you like fucking piano? Do you like Spurs basketball?
Do you like painting?
Do you like painting? But it was this time where it was like just, hey, sexuality. And then you got to admit, it got real fucking weird where kids were wearing tails at school and now they're furries and all kinds of other shit,
Yeah.
And that's the problem is like, there's no bumpers on the fucking bowling lane, right? And it's like, okay, if we're going to say, hey, you have straight, you have heterosexual, you have homosexual, you start getting all the different things. Okay, fine. Let's limit it to 5, but then you start seeing the gender thing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's 80 something genders or 100 something genders. And then folks start coming out and saying, it's endless.
Yeah.
Well, now it's like, okay, now we're just being stupid, man. Let's play the game. But then all of a sudden I've heard about kids in schools a few years back and I don't know how true it was. I just heard it through people that I thought wouldn't necessarily lie about it. But kids wanted to start using the fucking bathroom in litter boxes.
Oh my gosh.
And it wasn't happening a lot, but it's like when you don't have some sort of structure, and you just let people. And this is the thing is, I feel like you need to allow. Again, we only have fucking 80 years, right?
Exactly.
Do what you want.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it's like, I'm not playing that game anymore. You just fucking took off in the left field. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's. again, I say this with all due respect to everybody, because I really feel like I'm in a place in my life where there's so much good and I want to spread goodness.
Sure.
And can I be negative? Absolutely. I mean, we could have our bad days. Have I had bad days in the past? More bad days than good days? Absolutely. And our passion can be perceived for different things sometimes, so when I mention this, I want to say with all due respect, because I haven't walked down that road before, right? I don't know everything about queer-isms and in queer life. You mentioned you have friends who are in LGBTQ lifestyles. Hey, I do too. We all know people that are in there.
Oh, yeah.
To me, I feel like honoring other people's struggles is a part of my life, because I feel like I have to do justice. I feel like there were other people that advocated for brown people like us to get to where we're at in our lives, for us to have good paying jobs, for us to have comfortable homes, for us to have a platform, for us to be able to have free speech, all of those things. You know what I mean? So when we talk about, gender and how gender is today, I think it's very complicated. I think often in society, we hear the extremes and we try to make that everything, I don't know what that's like. One of the examples that I've seen that I try to spread amongst straight men is the example that former basketball player Dwayne Wade had with his child, whom transitioned at a young age from male to female, I believe. Now, I don't know everything. I haven't, studied up on this before I came in here to speak on this, but he is supportive of his child, period. That's it. That's the end of the discussion, Now, if his child wants to use the bathroom in a litter box, I mean, I don't know what that's like. I mean, do they have a litter box in the home? Are they saying everyone has to use a litter box? I don't know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And this is the hard part about talking on this conversation is if we had somebody that shared, that had that experience, it'd be interesting to get that perspective, but we don't.
Exactly.
So that's why we're talking.
And again, to me, I only mention these things because I feel like, I personally do somebody else justice by bringing up something like this, because listen, I'm a straight man. Most people that know me, they know I walk and live the lifestyle of a straight, man, as many people say. I have my significant other is a woman, we're to be married, things of that nature. We want to have children and we want to have more children, so I feel like I do someone justice by talking about a struggle that is not my own.
Sure.
I think, us as a healthy, productive society do good by uplifting other people. What good does it do me to come in here and talk all about myself?
Right.
Me. That doesn't do me really that much good. People are going to look at him and be like, hey, he's self-centered. He only cares about himself. He's what is the word? A narcissist, right? Those are those things that people would say, right? And that's not to say we don't advocate for ourselves, but it doesn't cost me anything to talk about struggles that other people have and to try to create more understanding for those people. Those people that you mentioned that talk a little bit about them being out and proud and Pride Month and all of those things, they have their reasons. Right? They have their reasons. I don't know what those reasons are. I don't live that life, but they have reasons to why they are, advocating for themselves and their sexuality as they do. Maybe they're, if we see those things in the social media space, people are trying to get clicks, views, shares, likes, comments. That's what people are trying to get into social media. So if we're only looking at social media and people are doing me to get all of the spotlight on them, well, that's what people do in the social media space, right? That's how people want to get those followers and subscribers. That's how people are making money these days, right? And we talked about, hey, money's a necessity these days. If other people feel more liberated because finally they have the right to get married to their partner who happens to be the same, gender as them, hey, more power to them. I don't know what that's like, and I don't want to pretend like I have all the answers. The questions to that those people have for their answers are different than the questions that I have for my answers. Yeah. So it's more complicated than what initially meets the eye.
It's very complicated, but I guess for people, and since we're here having this conversation, it doesn't consume my life, right? But I think a lot of times and this is the thing, man, not just LGBTQ things, but in general, I feel like everybody has some sort of struggle to some degree, right?
Absolutely. Everybody does.
And I feel like whether it's social media, whether it's the news, whether it's a political party, I feel like they use the shit out of people, right? And it's like, if it's the gay community that they can use, they're going to use them. If it's immigrants, they're going to use them.
Yeah.
If it's blacks or whites or browns or Asians or Native Americans or whatever, trailer park people, lake people, they're going to use them. And it bothers me because they don't really care about the individual. You know, it's funny because, like, I was talking last night about the recent rallies on the deportations and ICE and the raids that are going on. And it's funny because I paid attention to it, and I'm watching this, and I'm seeing people protest, and it was very interesting to watch because I paid attention the whole time, right? And it was very interesting because I see people in the street angry that people are getting deported. Some of them might be relatives. Some of them might remind them of their relatives. Some of them might have a similar history to the people being deported, right? And it's interesting because I watched that process in the news and in social media. And it started off with people very passionate about what was going on. And it evolved. All of a sudden, you start seeing that No Kings rally pop up, right?
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I was like, what is this, right? Okay, we started off with people in the street upset because ICE raids were happening. But now we're talking about this No Kings thing. Well, okay, what is that? Now all of a sudden you start seeing advertisements and flyers and it's like, okay, somebody's funding this, right? And it was interesting to me, and this is what insults me, right? I get Trump's president. I get he's dictating these processes. But it started off as seeing people just like me and you in the street protesting. And then it evolved into a billionaire-funded political anti-Trump rally, right? And so I couldn't help but feel like these billionaire funders, I don't even know if that's the correct word, led and used these people who originally started for a reason and got led down the road to be used to protest President Trump. One thing that struck me super funny, Maximo, was I went to the website, right? And it said it was a No Kings rally. Like I said, I'm finding I have way more liberal friends and family than I could ever imagine because they're all posting it, and some of them even went. But you go to the website, and their slogan is the No Kings Rally. And I don't know if you paid attention, but the slogan is no crown, no thorns, no kings. And I go, hang on. Who's the only one that's talking about? Jesus.
Yeah.
It says no crown, no thorns, no kings.
Yeah. Now I see where you're going.
That bothered the shit out of me.
Yeah,
man.
I can see that.
That bothered the shit out of me. But this is the other thing, is I've talked to a lot of people that, like I mentioned earlier, who work the border or have worked, or have worked that. And it's I think this is where I get angry, and I think this is where they get upset, is I see a lot of people, friends and family of mine, who are very eager to protest in the street, or at least support it.
Yeah.
Right? And I sit there and I go, I don't think, the only time I can think of a protest that ever really worked was, I think it was in California in the 60s when the Black Panthers stood on the Capitol with guns. And it kind of pushed the government back. And people say, well, you might have a shotgun, you may have a rifle, but the military's got all the stuff, right? Yeah. But this is the thing that protest did. The Black Panthers didn't think they could beat the government, but they were going to force the government to spill blood on the Capitol steps if they really wanted to. Yeah. And that's the only time I've ever seen that work. I ended up getting so angry at the protests, man. Yeah. Because I said, you know what? You're not doing shit in the street. Yeah. If you really want to change something, holler at your congressman, holler at your senator. Tell them, hey, I don't know what the process is. I talked about getting an immigration lawyer on. I really want to know the process. Is it too expensive? If somebody wants to come here legally, they shouldn't be fucking broke when the process is over. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It shouldn't take several, and I don't know that it does. I don't know this stuff. I want to learn it. But I was so upset because there's all these people in the street, and it's like, you're not doing anything. In 2 weeks, nobody's going to talk about you. Yeah.
The protesting is complicated.
It's very complicated, but it's like, you really want to do something, go to your congressman, go to your senator. You know what? Go sit in at their office. You're not doing it from the street. You gotta go to where people can make the decision. This is another thing, is like, we've had every fucking Democrat, Republican for several years. That's all we have. Yeah. Nobody's changed it. Yeah. Nobody's fixed it. Nobody's made it more efficient. Nobody's done any of that. Yeah. And it turns into this football that people can use every year. And it's funny because, like, if you pay attention, politicians are always gonna do something. Yeah. They don't never fucking do it. Yeah. You know, they're always gonna fix it. I'll give you an example. When Trump won the first election, I voted for him, right? At the time before that, the Republicans said, we just have the House. We can't do anything. Yeah. We need the Senate. Yeah. Well, fuck, they got the House and the Senate.
Yeah, they had the House and the Senate.
And they said, we can't do anything. We need the presidency. They got the presidency, and they still didn't do anything. In Trump's first term, they didn't do anything. Yeah. It's like you spent 2 years with all three, and you still didn't do anything? Yeah. You know, so it's funny because I feel like a lot of people who aren't paying attention see the divide in the country as a vertical line, right? And they say there's two sides. In reality, it's very simple. The fucking divide it's a horizontal line. Yeah. And it's been that way since the beginning of fucking time when you had lords and peasants. It's not any different. Yeah. It's repainted. It's a new flyer. It's repackaged. But it's the same fucking game. Yeah. It's the ruling class and everybody else.
Yeah, many people feel that way about class. And thank you for saying all this stuff. I mean, we talked about this. I come from an activist background. Mm-hmm. And an activist, to me is really about someone that gets out there, spreads awareness, and tries to create some change however it may be possible. And so, you're speaking on a lot of good things. Recently I watched an interview from Kamala Harris, who we know lost to Donald Trump in the presidency in the last general election. She ran as a Democrat. She had 107 days to campaign when Joe Biden stepped down. He stepped down for whatever reason. Again, I don't know. I'm not a registered Democrat. I don't know all of the things about politics. I'm kind of getting the cliff notes here. She campaigned for 108 days. She lost to Donald Trump in the general election, which we know is a very complicated process to be elected United States president. Many people see, on election night, you'll see all of a sudden that the number that we're trying to get to is 270. That's right. The number in the electoral college that you need to gain the majority in the presidency, right. Which is very complicated. Anyway, to get back to the point, Kamala Harris came on the Stephen Colbert show. She was, on a late night show guest, and she mentioned that she was not going to run for governor of California. Her name was thrown out there to run for governor of California. She said she didn't want to run, and Stephen Colbert asked her, well, why? We think you would do good maybe with that. And he said something about your polling numbers are very high, even by double digits, looks like you would win. She said that she doesn't want to run for office again because she feels like the system is very broken. And it's acknowledging exactly what you're talking about, that horizontal line, right? Many people are disillusioned with American politics. Many people do not identify as a Democrat or Republican. Many people do not vote. Many people don't want to be involved in this bullshit, right, of voting, of getting out there and advocating and campaigning for people and being used. Many of our people don't vote because they don't want to be used. They don't want to feel like they just got one over, or they were campaigning for so-and-so as governor or as city council member or as senator. And then that governor or that representative says, oh, I'm going to lower taxes. And then that person gets into office and they raise taxes. And you're like, wait a minute. I trusted you. You told me you were going to, lower taxes. You didn't do that. Now I feel like a jerk. Mm-hmm. Now I feel like I've been used. Kamala Harris in the interview said she did not want to go and campaign and do all that stuff because she didn't want to go and have a transactional conversation with people in California. She didn't want to go out there and campaign and run and go visit with people and sit with people like you and I and say, hey, I'm going to change this. I want you to vote for me though. Right? Because that's what politicians have to do. They got to get people to vote for them. Right. And when people feel like it's transactional, you feel used. And then when things don't change, you feel even more like you've been used. Sure. The state of American politics and the enthusiasm that we have to get involved in that stuff is very low. Yeah. However, the spirit of the nation is very patriotic. It is very rebellious as well. Many people in this country feel, they may not say it, but dissension is the greatest form of patriotism, and that means to talk about America's shortcomings. This country is very young. Sure. This country next year will be 250 years old. 1776, 4th of July, all that stuff. The nation's independence, 250 years old on paper. Prior to that, even the state of Texas, there were 6 flags that flew over the state of Texas. Prior to that, we had indigenous people that were in this country, in this continent for hundreds and thousands of years prior to that. This country is so diverse, particularly in ideology. The ideologies that we share in this country are all over the place. There are people like you and I that would say, hey, I'm Mexican. There's other people that say I'm Mexican American. There's other people that say I'm Tejano. There's other people that say I'm Chicana. There's other people would say that I'm American. There's other people that would say I'm Texan. There's other people.
I always go Texan first, man.
See, there you go. But
sure.
That is your right.
Sure.
That is a cool thing. That's a good thing. There ain't nothing wrong with that, right? There are many people that would say, hey, I'm just American. I was born here. I'm 2 or 3 generations back. People that look just you and I. And if they say that, hey, that's cool too. Right. And so the ideologies that we share as people inside of this country are all over the place. So you're going to get people that want to go and protest. They feel like they're doing something good by protesting. That makes them feel good. They may be getting something done, and what it is, the right to assemble is one of the basic fundamental things that this country was founded upon, sure. Right? It's in the Bill of Rights. It's in one of the First Amendment. It's in the First Amendment. The right to assemble, the freedom of speech. These are all things that have been guaranteed to us as people born in this country, And so there are culture wars happening all over the place. You talk about pro-gun, anti-gun. You talk about pro-abortion, anti-abortion. You talk about pro-God, anti-God, or no God, right? I mean, there's all of this stuff that's all over the place. So you're going to find people in this country that have the ideologies every which way. Every which way.
One thing that I love about this country is the United States started when people had enough, right? So I love when people have had enough and want to be vocal about it. I don't want you to destroy property. I don't want you to hurt people. But you want to raise some hell? Fuck, that's how we started the country. Assembly, I think, is great. But in my opinion, you're doing it in the wrong place.
Yeah. I mean, and there are people that believe when you go and protest, let's say, for example, ICE raids. You talked about ICE raids. If you go and protest in the street somewhere, you may be blocking roads, and therefore you are blocking roads that police or ICE, may be able to travel to get to immigrants.
Yeah, but you might also be blocking roads that people are trying to get to work.
You're absolutely right as well. And that disruption that you're talking about is part of what these activists are trying to do. They're trying to disrupt society. Say, look, this inconvenience that you're feeling, this is part of what everyone needs to be aware of. Now, do I personally agree with that? I don't know. It depends. Maybe it would depend on the day. Listen, a lot of those immigrants that people are getting arrested from and being snatched up from are at workplaces.
Some, yeah.
Yeah. And so those people are being snatched up from workplaces in factories and fields. There was an example where a gentleman who was a U.S. Marine veteran was in a work factory and he was rounded up. And this is did you hear about this case?
I heard about it briefly.
Yeah, it couldn't have been much. It was only like one guy, but the point is that, if these people are working in contributing to this society, why are we snatching them up there? There's deeper conversations that need to be had regarding how we treat immigrants, how they are being employed and working in our factories to do things like pick, fruits and vegetables and farm, the land, which some jobs most Americans don't want to do. Let me be honest. You and I aren't going to do those jobs. You and I aren't going to go pick pickles in the fields for 20 cents a pickle. You know what I'm saying?
This is a couple of things. I want to stop you right now because I want to kind of back up to some stuff because
we're all over the place. Let's do it.
Well, I want to kind of go back a little bit and we'll come back to this thing. But Kamala Harris, I saw that she was running for governor and she backed out. And
she never officially ran though.
Okay. Well, the Frosty.
So she might have been interested.
Right. She was exploring it. But the Frosty side of me goes, had she been polling extremely well, she would have taken it.
She was polling well.
Well, I saw something on CNN where they were saying right now, I guess it was president's side. They didn't have a real leader, but I think if she felt extremely confident, she would have taken it.
Because, I don't think so.
Because she hasn't done well in any of the elections she's been in. Even when she ran for president, she never won a primary. She didn't. You know, and it's interesting. It's interesting. I think one of these turned off, but it's interesting because this is one thing that I'm like, let's stop playing the game now.
Yeah.
With folks, because it's like everybody knew Joe Biden wasn't capable cognitively.
That's an argument.
So to say, well, he had to step out. Well, you knew he had to step out, but she never won a primary. But she became presidential candidate.
She became the candidate. Yeah.
So I mean, I think this is where I kind of go, hey, let's hold everybody to the same standard, right? I got my friends that vote Democrat. And it's interesting because I say, let's look at our own house, right? I'm not a Republican. I typically vote Republican, but this is my thing. Vote for your person. When your person wins, watch them as if they were the other team.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's kind of like, it's like my Democrat friends. I say, be upset with the Democrat Party, you know? Since Obama, they gave you Hillary. At the time, Hillary was being investigated by the FBI. She'd just come off of Benghazi, and that was your candidate?
Yeah.
And then after that, you got Joe Biden, which was obviously having cognitive issues.
So there are certainly some problems with the Democratic Party. I mean, let's not.
But this is the other thing. I sit there and I go, what kind of person would allow her husband to be used this way when you know he's got mental issues? So that bothers me too. You know, and then let me fast forward to the illegal stuff. The immigration things is everybody that I talk to say the same thing. They're not against legal immigration. They're against illegal immigration. And I guess this is where I get real upset. So I'm going to have to go real slow.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Super upset.
I mean, if we want to make sure these cameras are not off for this either, because you got to hear it.
I feel like one of these turned off. I heard a little chime.
Okay.
So one of them, I don't know, we may have ran out of space, but
this is good. I mean, let's hear it. I like this.
So this is where I get real frosty, man. I see people get passionate about the ICE raids. And people that I talk to, whether it's on the podcast or just socially, and we have this conversation, people get upset when they see ICE detaining people and removing them. Mm-hmm. And I get real upset because I say, where were you? Because these people that I talk to, that I have on the podcast or that I talk socially, we go back farther, man. Mm-hmm. And we say, where were you when people were finding out that little girls were given the morning after pill because they knew they were going to be raped all the way to the United States? Where were you when that video came out in Arizona where the Border Patrol has night vision and they're recording this coyote on the fence in wintertime, and he picks up 2 4-year-olds and he drops them over the fence and he leaves them? Luckily, Border Patrol was watching and they saved those boys.
Yeah.
And I say, where were you when they found those 3 little girls in the valley? That white couple farming in the wintertime found them sitting on a pile of dirt. I think it was 2, 3, and 5-year-old little girls. Where were you? I also go, Jorge Ventura, I don't know if you follow him. Love that guy. He started off as an independent. Now he contributes to like big news agencies. But he was covering the border on both sides. And one day he posted a picture on the Mexico side. Trash everywhere. But in the center of the picture are used condoms and a pair of little pink girls' panties. And it's like, the people I talk to, they've been pissed off since then.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like now we see people getting picked up and people are up in arms.
Yeah.
But the people that I talk to go, where were these fucking people? If you ever get a chance, you gotta listen to Sean Ryan podcast with Tom Holman. He's the border czar. And it's so interesting, man. It'll break your fucking heart.
Oh yeah, I believe it. I know there's a lot of sad stories.
He talks about the shit you've seen, and he even talks about in Farfurias. He said, we went to a doctor's ranch in Farfurias, and we were finding dead little girls with broken ankles.
Yeah.
He goes, we find out that there was a coyote group who were raping these little girls and breaking their ankles so they couldn't go for help.
Yeah.
Like, and this is kind of where I do this divide thing, especially, I see this happening and I go, okay, well, we had a political party that told everybody, it was this, don't come here with a wink.
Yeah.
Right? You allowed people to come from all over the world, and even there's an interesting photo and video that I always screenshot when I see it, but Texas put razor ribbon across the border.
Yeah.
Biden had the Border Patrol take a fork truck, lift the ribbon up, and let everybody in. You always hear about children being used going back and forth, not being a part of that family. They're just using children to look like families. I have people in South Texas.
Yeah.
I talked to the DA down there. She says, we have ranchers who are old ranchers who come up to us and say, the cartel came to my ranch and said, here's some money, get the fuck out of town for 3 days and don't come back.
Yeah.
They said, we just came back into town, and I just wanted to tell you that happened.
Yeah.
We have people at a certain point during that whole process, the last administration, if you're just regular Joe Blow coming here, you cross the border, you turn yourself into Border Patrol. At the time they process you, you come into this country. There were so many people in South Texas, and George West as well, where trucks of coyotes and illegals are running through fences, running from cops. If you're coming here just to work, and there's people who do.
Yeah.
If you're coming here just to work, you're turning yourself in and getting processed and coming in. That's how it was going.
Yeah.
If you're the guy who's in the truck fucking running through ranches away from the cops, what are you doing? The other part of that, I've talked to Victor Avila. He used to work for Homeland Security. Great story. Not great story, but an interesting story. But he works trafficking. And he says, a lot of these people who come from other countries can't afford to come here.
Legally.
Not even illegally.
Okay.
So they tell the cartel tells them, or the coyotes tell them, hey, I'm going to charge you $10,000 to come here. You're going to pay it off. And I'm going to get you an apartment. I'm going to get you a phone, groceries.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay your bills. So on top of what you owe me for the trip, you owe me $1,000 a month for your living expenses. And they put them into prostitution. They put them into selling drugs. They put them into other things. And they never let them out of that fucking debt.
Yeah.
And it's like...
Yeah, it's a bad business.
If you really care about people, you'll get out of the fucking street. You'll go to the Capitol.
Yeah.
You'll go to your congressman. You'll say, fix this shit.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing wrong with immigration.
Yeah.
We need immigrants here. But it's got to be done correctly.
Yeah.
And if you really cared, you'd force these motherfuckers to do it the right way. Or not do it the right way, but to change the process so they can do it the right way.
Well,
that's the big thing. And then there's another thing. People like to say, Americans don't want to do this job for this price. And I hate that so much.
See, because you don't think it's true.
No, I hate that so much because how dare you be okay with paying this dude from Mexico, from Venezuela, from Guatemala, 20 cents to pick something.
Yeah.
When it should cost $1.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like there were so many people, and social media still has some decent people in it. But I saw a video of a guy. He was walking around, and he's filming this swimming pool in California that's incomplete. And he says, this is what happens when you start rating people and they don't want to come to work. He goes, where else am I going to get this swimming pool finished at $5 an hour?
Yeah, because you're paying little.
Right. And it's like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah,
if
so
that job,
the business owner.
If that job's a $20 an hour job, I don't give a fuck where he's from.
Yeah.
Pay him $20.
Yeah.
But that's the problem is people like to go, where else are going to get people to do the shit we don't want at a price we don't want?
Well, capitalism surely has its critiques.
But those people think those people think they're advocating for the illegal. When you're making the point of, no, you're fucking the illegal.
Well,
and you're advocating for fucking the illegal.
Well, no, listen, I mean, people are also bringing awareness to how little and the deviance of those business owners as well, right? I mean, they should pay people more. We're not talking about benefits. We're not talking about a livable wage. We're not talking about a, retirement plan. I mean, we're talking about people just to get a job done.
Right.
That's it.
Well, and I think that's part of people always say, I always hear people talk about look like me. How people look like me, representation. And it's like, what pisses me off is when I see an old Mexicano that looks like my dad and he's 60 and he has nothing. He has no retirement. He has no 401k, and his body won't let him do the job anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, we let that fucking guy work his good years off, and now he can't even take care of himself anymore. And it's like, to me, let's fix the fucking immigration system. Let's do it correctly, and let's pay immigrants a good wage. Let's not take advantage of the fact that they're scared to be here.
Well, okay, so and again, I appreciate your passion. You don't intimidate me at all when you're talking about this, right? Because you told me, hey, I need to watch how loud I get. Well, listen, I'm as loud as they come.
I was real slow.
but listen, so to play along, I mean, why don't people just pay their workers more then?
I don't disagree. How long is the fucking minimum wage been? $7.50.
I mean, who can live off that?
No, you know what's
you can't get a single bedroom apartment.
You know what's interesting, and I don't have the answer here, but my mind slowly exploring it here recently. I sit there and I go, you look at like the Philippines and places like that, or even Mexico, but like you look at the Philippines or India. And I love fucking 90 Day Fiance, man. I watch shit of that. But a lot of these people from over there. So when they go to those countries, they're like, hey, it's a loaf of bread and it's 2 million baht or whatever the fuck the currency is. And I go, how in the fuck is that 2 million of whatever currency that is? And it makes me worry here because 15 years ago, I bought a house for $150,000. Now you can't buy that house for less than $300,000. I
was going to say 3 is double. Yeah, I was going to say that,
man. And it's like, how do you expect your children to be able to afford a fucking house?
Yeah,
and that's one thing where I go, maybe that's why these countries have things worth millions of whatever their currency is because everything got fucked up. And it's like, how did it get there? So I mean, we kind of jumped everywhere, but it's like there's so many things that are screwed up. But and look, when I tell you my opinion,
it's your podcast.
I like to say it. I like to say it like I know everything I'm talking about, and I do. I do say it, but it's like I feel like people are focused on the wrong thing, right? Whether it's protesting the street, I say go fucking take it to your congressman and your senator.
So there are people that are not only taking it to their congressman or senator, there are people that are running for office and winning.
That's important.
There are people so let's just be clear. There are people that are getting into office that have those same views. And it takes a lot for them to do that because, as we just talked about, people are disillusioned with the process. However, some of these kids are all right. It takes a lot of young people with the energy, with the spirit, and with the idea that maybe we can hold America true to its values. Now, listen, in this book, and I don't have to, talk about this book, but one of the things that's in this book, and it's what we do in the schools, is they still do the Pledge of Allegiance. Mm-hmm. And in the Pledge of Allegiance, you talk about justice and liberty for all. And so when they say that, it isn't justice and liberty for just some, it's for all people. And and again, that's how the little phrase goes. It doesn't say justice and liberty or liberty and justice just for Americans. It's for all. The Statue of Liberty is a thing in the United States. Liberty means for all people. Give me your tired, your poor. Give me the masses to come work and contribute here. Listen, what you have just done is you've made a very good critique of capitalism. You talked about the class wars that are happening in this country. Absolutely, there are class wars from the uber rich, the billionaires, the 1%, and everybody else.
But you know what? But socialism isn't the fix.
So I'm glad you went there as well, because capitalism, the anti-capitalist doesn't have to be the other extreme, which is communism or socialism. It doesn't have to be that.
Which is interesting because I didn't realize how prevalent communism is in this country.
Well, a lot of
everywhere.
The socialist practices are in this country. I mean, look, we pay taxes, and that funds the police department, the military, Medicaid, the fire department. Sure. Our regular social services that we have for the public is being funded by us. So a lot of people say, hey, are you a socialist, or why is socialist? Look, socialism is already here. Social security.
Well, I think socialist programs are here, but to say socialism, I don't know that that's the answer, right?
Well,
we can be social about certain things, but when you get to the point, for example, what's the guy running for mayor in New York, Mondavi or something like that? It's interesting because we talked about it last night a little bit. He's talking about these city-run grocery stores, right? And we did some research, and they tried that, and I think it was in Kansas, and it failed. But this is the thing, is it sounds amazing, right? And listen, I grew up in a small town. Small towns run on favors. We fucking. Dad was friends with the game warden.
Yeah.
The game warden called, "Hey, Bear, I have 10 deer. I want 2 of them. Take 8." School nights, we're out there deboning meat, and I hated that shit. It was cold. I had school the next day, and my dad wasn't great at explaining things. Dad's thing was just do it because I told you.
Yeah.
Didn't realize he was feeding people in town with that. So like I'm not against that, but it's what happens when you have a community. Let's say New York, right?
Yeah.
They open these grocery stores and they want to give free food out. And I think, okay, awesome, right? But what happens when the people, they always talk about taxing the rich, right? What happens when the rich decide to move their money somewhere or to get out of that community? And you're no longer being able to fund those programs. So what happens? You start ending up with less fresh fruit, less fresh meat. Everything starts to spoil. Everything starts to deteriorate. Now there's less of it in the building. You've managed to get more people in the community dependent on that thing that you can no longer provide anymore. So what happens then?
Yeah, I mean, maybe part of the program is that you can't take, and again, I don't know, right? And just because it didn't work in Kansas doesn't mean it can't work in New York. And this country is a very diverse country, right? I mean, different populations of people, there's different ideologies, as we talked about. This person who's running for mayor of New York City, I mean, he has, gone through the process to put his name and campaign, and it seems like he's doing things, within policy, within his legal right to run for office and propose these things. Now, whether he gets elected or not, he hasn't been elected yet. It's possible. If he has these programs and these proponents for, free food or subsidized food or produce giveaways and things of that nature, I'm sure that these people are smart enough where they would write something into play where it would be given and given and given, but then it wouldn't run out. Again, I don't know how they're going about. Maybe it's a city funded garden that is doing cucumbers and pickles and peppers and potatoes. I mean, these things are already being delegated within city budgets. The city budgets, we talked about
it's hard to find gardens in New York, though.
Yeah, but no, there's enough space that they could garden stuff in New York somewhere. There's enough space.
New York State.
Long Island, you could put it up New York State and they would get it into New York City. Again, I don't know exactly. The garden, the space is there. You look at, I mean.
Well, the guy's the mayor of a city, right? He's not the governor.
Is he currently the mayor?
No, he's running. I'm sorry. He's running for the mayor of the city. He's not the governor. So,
true.
The things that you think, okay, what can contribute to that? Or how can we outsource some of the things that maybe we can't grow in the city? He technically just will, if he would run the city. So, his aspirations, he may not be able to cover what he's trying to aspire to.
And it's possible. And there may be people who campaign and advocate for this guy to realize, hey, he was just like everyone else. He used me for my vote and I shouldn't have campaigned for him. A lot of people campaign. We talked about why politicians can't deliver on their promises. A lot of them campaign on one thing and then they get in there and realize it's not just a me show. Right? If I am running for city council in the city of San Antonio, there are 10 or 11 or 12 council positions. I got to get everyone's buy-in on that, including the mayor, who may be diametrically opposed to my viewpoint. And so how do we win people over with our arguments? That's a difficult thing to do. That's why some of these propositions don't pass.
You know what's funny that you say that is, I know a politician like this wouldn't win, but I would love a fucking honest politician to go, hey,
and that's the thing. Many people get into it.
It's hard.
They get into it being honest and they realize, hey, this is a dirty game.
It's a very dirty game.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's complicated, man.
Yeah. And I guess that's where people get so disenfranchised with certain political parties, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of one thing that go back to where I say people were, protesting the street and they were doing it in the wrong spot. I go back to what I was saying earlier too, where it's kind of like hold your political party that you're affiliated with or you like, hold them accountable. I have so many friends of mine that I grew up with and we grew up in the same place. And it's so interesting to watch whether there's the side that they're supporting wins or loses. It's almost like, and I think I see this a lot online, where people go, whether the Republicans do it or the Democrats do it, and they might do the same shit. Mm-hmm. But it's when their side does it that they turn an eye. And it's like, I don't think that we can get true change in our political system until we start holding even the side that we voted for accountable.
Well, that accountability looks different for different people. To many people, and listen, you're absolutely right when you talk about, the political parties. There are many people that are anti-Democrat. I think the majority of the people in the United States are anti-Democrat, Republican. They're anti-two-party system.
Right now, big time, yeah.
Yeah. Many people, would say they don't identify with any of those. I don't have the numbers, but, look at Barack Obama. Barack Obama was monikered the deporter-in-chief by the Latino community in the United States, by the Latino intelligentsia, as I would say, the people that are in charge of the civil rights organizations, the larger ones in the United States. And let's also take a step back and realize.
Do you think like regular like there's people in the know, like maybe people or other folks that are kind of focused on that topic that pay real close attention, but do you think the general population realize stuff like that? I feel like they don't.
Probably not. But see, those activists, where I was going with that is those activists that we're talking about that are out here protesting right now, they were protesting when Obama was in office as well.
And that's what I say. That's great.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the shit that I'm talking about. Yeah. Let's be across the board. So yes, I love that.
Yeah.
But I feel like people, regular Joe Blow, go to work every day, they're ignorant to a lot of this stuff.
Well, how can you have the mental capacity to deal with something so complicated and then also deal with your career, your family, your house, your car, your family, all of these things, your extended family, taking care of your mother who is elderly and injured, she comes into your home. I mean, these are things that most Americans feel that the politicians don't understand. You know what I'm saying? And so therefore that accountability looks like, hey, you know what? I'm not getting involved with this. I'm protesting voting. I don't want to be involved in this. And that's how these snakes get into office and end up screwing people over. You know what I'm saying?
One thing that I find interesting, and I don't know, because I think about like when we were kids, right? I'm sure there was all kinds of corruption and all kinds of things. It's been happening since forever.
Yeah.
You can go back to biblical times and there was corruption. But it's interesting because I feel like I try and pay attention as much as possible. And like you just said, I fucking work. I got to do things, but I still make time to pay attention to this because it impacts everybody.
Yeah.
But it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I feel like in the last 15, 20 years, politicians care less about whether you catch them or not.
Perhaps.
Like, I feel like they don't give a shit what you do or if you catch them because you can't do anything about it. And it's one of those things where, and that's kind of a different tangent, but it's just kind of like, I feel like they don't care, man. They don't care if they get caught. They don't care. You got all these congressmen and women that are worth multi-millions of dollars. And it's like, they don't care that
Yeah.
And they don't care that you see all of a sudden they made some amazing stock market investments and they're millionaires now. And it's like, I guess that's where I get frustrated with the population because I go, we're looking at the wrong thing, right? It's paying attention to the left hand, ignoring the right hand, and they're both punching you in the face.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, there are arguments. I mean, everything you're saying is pretty accurate in the terms of people's perspective and their experience. When you're talking about this stuff happening down at the border, there's absolutely that stuff happening down at the border. But what we're also looking at is on the ground level and then what's happening up here. I mean, you have people puppeteering that stuff in some way.
Sure.
One of the things that many of these activists have advocated for and against is ending the drug war, right? We talk about, I mean, let's talk about, we talked about jails and prisons. Let's talk about the masses of people that are locked up for low-level drug offenses in this country. One of the things that this country is very good on and is number one in the world is the number of people that are incarcerated. The number of people that are incarcerated in this country for low-level, nonviolent drug offenses, that is a fact. That cannot be disputed.
You may know this better than I do because I don't know. I'll say right now, I don't know. But was that part of, and I don't remember what year it was, but was that part of the crime bill that kind of wrangled up a lot of people on low-level offenses? Was that the crime bill?
Listen, the war on drugs that happened in the 1980s, again, I don't have the specifics, but that really put the war on drugs, in the 1980s through the Reagan administration. And again, I wasn't politically aware during that time. I was born in the 80s, right? to know exactly what happened and how these bills were written, but many people were rounded up and put into, prisons and whatnot. And again, capitalism has done a number on this country. The fact that we have private prisons in this country, that's got to say something as well, that we have people getting rich off how many people are incarcerated. That tells you something right there. So, those people that are CEOs of those private prisons, they don't care if there's little girls being mutilated down at the border because, hey, guess what? If I can grab that coyote and incarcerate him over here, we're going to get it. If we can round up a whole family of illegals and throw them into the prison, guess what? We're going to get rich. And that's what's happening right now in these prisons in these countries, this country.
I think the good thing about capitalism is the competitiveness, but here I feel like in the last several years, you ended up, I guess there was an issue, and I'm trying to think back, there was a time, I think in the early 1900s where they started cracking down on companies that were monopolies, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like we're back to where companies are monopolies.
Yeah.
I think when companies were owned separately and there was a competitiveness there, capitalism works very well. But when you have one company that bought the other five and now they're a monopoly, now you're fucked. Now capitalism doesn't work so well.
And so where are the laws to stop those things when you have those people that are doing deals with the politicians to allow that? You see what I'm saying?
That's the shady part.
So how do you get those elected officials or whoever is in there to create the laws to say, hey, we can't do this anymore. We have to put the brakes on this, stop it. It's so complicated, so difficult, and people don't want to fight those fights like you just talked about earlier. Like, man, we don't want to get up and fight every day. Right? Would you think about that? Let's say you were an elected official. You're going to wake up every day and go into war to the point where your life might be at stake for the positions that you have. I mean, think about it. January 6th, 2020? What was the year that they raided the Capitol?
That was
just a couple years ago. There were people in the White House that were getting attacked. There were people that were getting attacked. You showed up to work that day, you almost being killed.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? But again, we're talking, a lot of the things that we're talking about are some of the extremes. This isn't every day.
No.
This isn't every single example.
Well, we talked about the squeaky wheel earlier, right? The
Yeah.
squeaky wheel gets the oil. But, I think not saying that the people at January 6th shouldn't have gone into the Capitol building, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of one of those things where I pay attention to certain things. You pay attention to certain things. But it's interesting because I've often said this. You might take the nicest white person, very kind-hearted, very giving. And if you call them racist every day and you treat them as if they're racist every day, at some point they're going to go, fuck it, I'm racist.
I might as well be racist.
I may as well be racist. You're calling me for a foul? I may as well foul.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's multiple things that happen. And I'll be honest with you, this is the conspiracy theory side of Gabe. I feel like it's all planned out, man. I feel like the division in this country is planned out. And again, we talked about the ruling class. I feel like all that's in place. It's planned out. One thing that's interesting that's happening right now is you hear about the redistricting of the maps, right? Uh-huh. And it's funny to watch the left go, how dare the right do that? They shouldn't do that. They're manipulating things. And it's interesting because it took me a while to learn this. But I guess a few years ago, I remember Gavin Newsom saying, hey, send me your homeless. Send them to California. We'll take them. And then the illegal immigration thing happening, right? Bring them to California, especially the homeless thing. I remember thinking, why would a governor ask other states to send them their homeless? Mm-hmm. And I may have learned this as a kid, but fuck, you forget things you learned as a kid. And then I realized, oh, there's the census, right? And whether they're here legally or illegally, or whether the homeless are homed, the census dictates how many representative seats they get, And so both fucking sides are playing the game, and they're playing us for stupid.
There's corruption on both sides,
sure. Well,
and it's part of the political game.
Right.
But this is, again, why the masses of people are saying, F this, I don't want to be involved. However.
But how do we keep them involved?
Well, you mean everyday people. Listen, a politically engaged society is a healthy society. However, it is very hard to be healthy in any way in this country for a lot of reasons. You know, I mean, again, we talk about the discourse people are having. People are not having civil discourse. People are not having civil debates about anything, you know, and that's not the stuff that's getting attention on social media every day. When this stuff, people want to see the wars. People want to see fights, people being dragged out of City Hall.
They want to see a shirtless guy with a Mexico flag standing on a burning cop car.
They want to see Jerry Springer. Right. You know, and it's funny because you and I are from the age group where we remember Jerry Springer. A lot of these kids don't even know who Jerry Springer is, you know, but
don't research it.
Kids. Don't research it. You don't want to know. But again, it's the system is working the way it's intended to work. If people go to sleep, if people are unaware, they're going to get in there, going to do crime. They're going to do illegal, shady stuff. You're right. It's been happening since the beginning of time. People have been doing, you know, corruption and dirty deals and backhanded stuff and underhanded stuff, you know, forever. You know, there are good people that are getting involved into government, into policy making, into some form of, you know, government to try to make things better. And it is a hard fight. Sure. It is a hard fight.
And now, it takes somebody with a lot of backbone.
It takes someone with a lot of backbone. You talked about to be honest. Yeah. To be honest.
Sure.
Listen, there are people that lean to the right and people that lean to the left that are going to bat for people because of their beliefs. And all the beliefs, not all of the beliefs are bad. If there are people that are pro-life, hey, that is your prerogative. That is your prerogative. If there are people that are pro-choice, that is your prerogative as well. How do we get to a place where we can call it good? And we're not ramming our beliefs and this person's belief down this throat, and these people are killing each other. A pro-life person killing somebody because of their viewpoint. You know, there's a lot of things in this society that have just got all of our wires crossed and things have got completely out of hand, and we need to take a step back. And I don't know if we're able to do that. Now, the other thing that we talked about that this thing has done is this thing has created a lot of misinformation. Sure. Oh my gosh. Come on, Gabe. You know it. You know, I mean, there are people that are looking at AI stuff today and believing it's real.
Well, you know what's funny is like, yes. And this is one thing like with the podcast, I feel like what you just talked about, I feel like that's heavily influenced by politicians and mainstream media, right? And I think podcasts are taking off a lot more because of that. But what people need to understand is when they hear a podcast, whether it's this one or any other podcast, it's not, there's some information there, but it's up to you to digest that information and find out if it's accurate, right? This is the other thing. And I told the guys last night when we had our podcast, I said, what we're doing, my goal is to try and inform as best as I can. Just some fucking guy who works in an engineering firm. Just try and inform as best as I can. But more importantly, I want to provoke thought in you.
You should.
I want you to think, and I'm not you in particular, but the listener. Yeah. I want the listener, I want to provoke thought in you. That way you go, hang on. Because there's things where I go, I didn't know that happened.
Yeah, let me go check.
Let me go do some
Hopefully
research.
You check.
That's the important thing, man. And I think when people, and I feel like people are starting to slowly head in that direction where they want to be self-informed. And I think when that happens, they'll realize a lot of the things that they're being told by trusted sources or what they thought were trusted sources. They start to realize there's a slant to that. There's a political slant to that for a reason. And whether it's power, whether it's money, whether it's, you know, trying to push the country into a globalist state with the other country. Yeah. Think for yourself. Yeah. We talked about the school system, right? I feel like when we were younger, we were taught, and I'm sure maybe they do a little bit of that now, but I feel like we were younger. There was more of a push for you to be somebody who thinks for yourself and can process through a problem and find out. Yeah. And then I remember, I would think I was a junior and they brought in the TOS test or the TAS test. And then all of a sudden we pushed to pass that test. Yeah. And it was no longer for you to learn how to problem solve. Yeah. It was, you need to remember this so you can pass this. And it's all funding, right? And so we got away from teaching children to be thinkers and problem solvers, and we taught them to be regurgitators, which is perfect for a ruling class who wants to run everybody. They just want they don't want thinkers, man. They want doers and regurgitators. And that's one thing that that's why I love talking to you. You know, initially I was like, this will be interesting because I even told you, we probably think differently on a lot of things. But it's like when we can sit here and have a conversation and see different perspectives and maybe leave here and go, that didn't make sense. He was a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Or, that kind of made sense.
Yeah.
But it's provoking thought, man.
Yeah.
And what's important, even bigger than the listener, is provoking thought in each other.
Yeah.
Right? Because at some point you're going to talk to somebody else. Fuck, you're probably going to come back here and talk.
Yeah.
But we start to see topics with a new, fresh vision, right? And we may go, I still feel strongly about this, and I still think that's crap.
Yeah.
But at least we were capable of saying, let me reset my vision and see if I still feel this way.
Well, listen, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, because I know we don't have, all day, the rest of the day here, but I
feel like we could hang out all day.
We could, honestly.
But you got kids.
A lot of my friends tell me that. I was on the phone the other day, so I have an event that I'm going to be doing some ring announcing at on August 23rd at the Boeing Center at Techport on Southwest San Antonio. DMP, Desi Martinez Promotions, Pro Boxing, which will be down there. So if you want to come down with your family, I'm going to get you some tickets. It's going to be a long way from up here, but I have done enough work with so many different people. I've been lucky and blessed and fortunate enough to not only meet people, but to travel and to get out there and speak to people, to realize, look, we're not so different. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what background you came from. I don't care what color your skin is, who you voted for. We can find a way to break some bread or roll some masa. Someone who I'm very close to as of recent told me that he was a former police officer within a department, and his job was to bust dirty cops. So think about that. Most people that we know that will say they're pro-police would say that the police officers are all great and we back the blue. This individual is going to go ahead and tell you that he was busting dirty police officers. And he's going to tell me that there are several dirty police officers within the police department.
Sure.
Now let's think about that. That is a very complicated thing. But again, it speaks to the diversity of people everywhere, no matter what color you wear, no matter what clique you're from, no matter what area code or zip code you're from. It's very complicated when we talk about humanity in general, and our feelings and our emotions. Look, again, I told you earlier, I try not to judge certain people. If somebody that I'm, talking to, I'm realizing they're having a bad day for whatever reason, there must be a reason that they're having a bad day.
My wife's a special needs teacher, and one of the most important things that I've learned from her is behavior is communication.
There you go.
Yeah.
So me as someone, I've got to do my best to try to understand the person across from me. So you have your viewpoints. That's cool. I love to hear viewpoints. I can wrangle and listen to that all the while, because guess what? I live a pretty good life. And so we're just exchanging ideas here.
Sure.
What's the problem with that?
Right.
That's the benefit of free speech. That's the benefit of podcasts. That's the benefit of social media. We're using it the right way. Right. And as we should get these messages out there and let people make decisions for themselves. I do challenge people to get out there and do their research. I also encourage people to check their sources on where they're hearing information from, because as you're hearing right now, as you just mentioned, there are biased sources that people are getting information from. Watch the water of where you're drinking and watch the source, because you're going to be drinking dirty water, right? And when these places that you're getting your information from are companies that are trying to get more money and get more revenue and more sources and more sponsors, man, we got an issue.
You're right.
We got an issue.
Yeah, I agree with you. One thing that I want to challenge people to also is you don't have to be on a podcast to have conversations.
Absolutely.
Like this. You can have it at a barbecue. You can have it, as long as you speak to somebody with an open mind and open ears, and you can have a conversation. You don't have to agree. You don't have to disagree.
Yeah.
But it's important to talk, man.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that people don't understand. We talked about January 6th and people feeling disenfranchised, but it's like when people stop talking, they start fighting. And that's the problem, man.
Yeah. War is the breakdown of civility. Sure. War is, politicians or policy and politics that have failed is no ambassadorship. It is no, civility. We don't need that, Now, there are people that are very angry. There are people that may hear me saying that and say, hey, Maximo, you sold out. You need to be hellfire, and brimstone. Look, I have that as well. I find it a very big problem when you see someone who is swooped up, for people that are being swooped up in court. There are people that are immigrants that are going to court to advocate for their cases, and they're abiding the laws that are here, and that are being swooped up and being arrested. There are things that are there are civilities, there are laws that are being broken right now that are happening to immigrants that are here, within the law, and it's being broken. One of the things is you might look up, and anybody that watching this, you can look up the war on international students. There are international students at American universities that are having their visas and their citizenship here, their temporary citizenship being revoked. That is an issue right there as well. Education, there's a lot of problems happening here, and we don't have as much time as we need to discuss all these things to that degree, which is the critique that people need to make an informed decision.
Right. But this is another thing, and not to go too deep because I know we're running out of time, but there's also, this is another thing that the other side of kind of how I look at things too, is I know a lot of people that have gotten in trouble with their visas because they let them expire.
Expired, yeah.
And it's like, you have an obligation on your end to make sure that stays current. And if it's not current, it's up to you to make sure it is current. And there's a lot of people that go, fuck it, I'm already here. My visa's expired. I'm just going to stay. And they do that when they're 22. And granted, when I was 22, I thought I fucking knew anything and I wasn't going to live very much longer. But then again, now you're 40 and you've been here for 18 years and you never bothered getting your status updated. And now you have a kid and a wife, and now you're getting deported. And now you're concerned. Mm-hmm. You should have been concerned at 22.
You're right.
But I mean, there's a whole lot, man.
There
Maximo, I don't want to cut you off, man. I know you're taking your kids somewhere.
I appreciate you, man.
I want you to share your comedy deal too as well.
Yeah, man.
So let people know about that.
There's a lot of stuff going on, and we all have busy lives and busy schedules, but we just finished a 3-month run. Myself partnered with Teatro Audaz San Antonio, which is an independent theater company that tells the stories of underrepresented people. We just finished Audaz to the Max Sketchy Nights in San Antonio, which is something I created. I had a vision of getting some of these messages out there in the form of comedy. Sure. All these things that we're talking about mental health, about immigration, about relationships, about communication, about getting these messages out there in the form of comedy. I grew up an 80s kid, so I grew up probably like you, watching In Living Color, Saturday Night Live, Mad TV. and so I created this series that we would have that right here in San Antonio, very much in the essence of Saturday Night Live, but to have something for San Antonio. San Antonio, as you know, as being the 7th largest city in the United States, being a major player out there, really doesn't get the recognition, doesn't get the boom, doesn't have all of the zeal, the glamour and glitz that we should have as a city like maybe Houston or Chicago or Miami. And so my goal was to create this, to put it into the ecosystem and the space for our entertainment, for our arts and culture, for our people that enjoy nightlife, and put something out there that people can go to and have fun and watch, sketch comedy, sketch comedy. So myself as a writer, myself as a creator, as an entrepreneur, said we got to do this. Teamed up with Laura T. Garza at Teatro Audaz. Big shout out to Laura and all the people there. Shout out to all of our actors. Oh my God, we had some of the funniest people up performing some of the funniest sketches.
How big is the troupe?
Oh man, we probably got a reoccurring cast of about 20 to 25 people.
Wow, that's a lot.
Oh my gosh, rock stars.
That's cool.
All hilarious in their own right, that all have many different skills of singing, of bringing different personalities to life, and it was just an amazing experience. We just capped off a 3-month run. We're taking August off and kind of revisioning and repackaging and where we want to go for the future. But this is something that is an amazing product. It has legs, and so you're going to want to be there at the next show.
I know you said y'all just finished a run. Do you have dates for the new launch, or
so I believe there is a date for September, and I want to give also recognition and shout out to the Rah Rah Room, who is our sponsor and our host for this series, the sketch comedy show, the Rah Rah Room on North San Pedro, just south of the North Star Mall. It is the perfect venue. Okay. So if you came out to any of the shows, you know that is the perfect venue for this sort of enterprise. And so listen, with the next show that we have, you got to be there because it's going to be hilarious, drop dead. We do it midweek as well. So that is a time where people can come and kind of get away from the work and try to unplug from all of the stress that's happening in your life and come out midweek and just be revitalized and feel good about life. Because there's a lot of things, as much as negativity that's happening out there, and we could focus on all the negative things, we want to bring some shine and some love and a spotlight to all the good things happening out there too.
Now I'm a fat, overly attractive male.
So we got a sketch for you too then.
Well, I don't want to. Well, okay, let me pause on what I was just fixing to say. I don't know if you know this, but you've been talking to dramatic royalty.
Ooh.
I'm the 1998 Best Supporting Actor at B County College. I just want to throw that out there.
All right.
But going back to being fat and overly attractive, what can people expect as far as do y'all serve alcoholic drinks?
Oh,
all that good stuff.
Oh,
so
yeah.
people can come out, watch comedy.
Oh, yeah.
Get some food in them, get some drink in them, and it's just a full night. How long does typically a show last?
So you need to go to teatroaudaz.com or Teatro Audaz on any of your social media platforms. You know, our shows are hilarious. We have about 8 to 9 comedy sketches that are originally written by myself and other writers. And you know, the sketches take on and critique modern society. So as we talked about capitalism, we talked about, you know, marriage, we talked about, you know, LGBTQ rights. These are all things that are built into these sketches. And it happens at this really kind of raunchy, provocative nightclub. And so there are drinks at the bar. You can go ahead and take photos. You can, you know, support the actors by giving them a couple of tips,
okay,
you know, and that sort of thing. And it's a very fun. The last show we did a live karaoke as well at the end. So if you wanted to, if you saw something you liked and you wanted to be a part of the show, you could stick around afterwards and do some live karaoke. We have stand-up comedians. We have people that are skilled actors, performers of all kind. And so it was really a unique thing. Anybody that saw it has said, this is amazing. So we want to keep it going because it's a really popular and fun thing.
I'm going to ask you a question and you don't have to answer
go
it.
ahead.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, go ahead. I can answer.
If it's not a good one, just smile at me and I'll change subject. But if San Antonio has a lot of talented people in it.
Oh my gosh.
If there's somebody who would love to participate, how do they get involved in something like this?
So absolutely. So we want this to be a platform for talent. We want talented people to find this hub and be able to contribute in any way possible. So maybe they're coming in, you know, as a writer or a contributor of some form. Maybe they want to audition. Maybe they have an idea for a sketch and they don't know how to write it. Somebody else can write it. Maybe they just want to act. Maybe they want to do a cameo. Maybe they want to host the show. Maybe they want to bring a group of people in. Maybe they want to sponsor. Maybe they want to give money. There's a lot of ways to contribute to this thing, and we want to bring everybody in.
Okay. And so if they want to participate, they go to the website?
They can find me, okay. Maximo. You can find me on, you know, any social media platform. You can find me on my website. You can Google me. You can go to Teatro Audaz as well. There's many ways to get a hold of us. We ain't hard to find.
That's cool, man. And also, I just want to remind everybody, check out El Nino.
Eladio Nino. The Nino podcast.
El Nino podcast. The Nino or El Nino?
I think it's the Nino podcast.
Okay. And he's on YouTube. That's where I found him.
He should be on YouTube, Facebook. Check him out wherever social media or wherever podcasts, you know, are found.
Awesome, man. Maximo, say your last name for me again.
Anguiano, Maximo Anguiano. Big shout out to the Anguiano tribe, all of our people. We love y'all. And man, it's been fun, Gabe. I appreciate you. Where did the time go?
Man, I tell you what, we're at 2 hours and 20 minutes. So.
Ooh, my phone's blowing up.
Yeah, we need to get you out of here. I appreciate you. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
All right, man.
Thanks for listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
Yo, Barry.